All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Bearded Gear podcast. This is episode number 17, and I'm joined today by my buddy Tyler of EDC Gear Reviews. And I've been watching EDC Gear Reviews since long before I had a channel. I distinctly remember watching your channel way before I was recording anything of my own, just as I was kind of getting into the knife hobby. I feel like you've been reviewing knives for quite a while now, and guns as well, which I'm sure we'll go across that topic. I actually just picked up my newest firearm today, so that's
Nice.
fresh on my mind. But how are you, Tyler? How are you doing today?
Doing good. Thanks for having me on.
Pleasure is all mine. So
Yeah.
first things first, how long have you been on YouTube? I didn't look back at what your first upload was.
Oh, I haven't either. So it's been at least 6 years, I think.
Okay.
Maybe more than that. I could look really quick.
Yeah, that's a good while. 6 years. That puts us back to like 2015-ish.
Yeah. I haven't looked at this in a long time, so we'll just check real quick. I'll just hop into my YouTube studio, that fun stuff.
And you can probably sort by oldest, right?
Yeah, exactly. It shouldn't take too long to figure it out. By date. Let's see here. Wow. Oh, okay. Yeah, those don't count. Those are like old videos. So I would say like my first knife video was actually even it's 8 years ago. Wow, 2013.
Okay.
And it was the ZT560 CBCF. Do you remember that knife? It was a special run. Oh no, wait, I had one before that. Same time frame though. The Boker Epicenter.
That one I don't know. I know Boker, but I don't know the Epicenter.
That knife was a Todd Rexford design. It was actually way cool, but it had major, like everyone had issues with it. It had locked rod kick like crazy, and it was a cool design, very cool design, just horribly executed by Boker. Big surprise, right? Yeah. So they've gotten better, I think. But
I was gonna say, I feel like those types of issues in general are less prevalent now in the knife world. Like the standard of minimum quality has risen.
Yeah, definitely. So I can't believe it's been that long. That's crazy. It's still been 8 years. And I started with knives, and then I got into doing a lot of gun stuff and other gear, and then it's like some prepping stuff. And my channel has kind of always been multifaceted. It's never been one subject, which if I could go back, I would probably change, because it's hard. It's kind of hard to like maintain all of those different things and create content on those. And I would say majority of my videos are knife videos for sure. Right. That's more than, and a lot of that is because of, some recent, I shouldn't say recent, but some changes YouTube made years ago, for monetization and stuff like that. So
right.
a lot of gun channels were kind of hurting because of that. So I kind of shifted my focus more to knives.
Yeah, didn't your channel used to be called at one point EDC Gear and Gun Reviews, right? Or was it always EDC Gear Reviews?
No, it has gone through many names. I shouldn't say many. I think 3 name changes. It was originally Knives, Guns, and Gear. That was like the first name of my channel, and it was that for a long time. I should have grabbed a drink. I might have to grab some. And
I'll excuse you if you need to go.
I just grab some water real quick. But it was Knives, Guns, and Gear for a lot of years, and I started, I don't know why. Honestly, it's like one day I had this like, hey, let's change the name of the channel. I don't know why, but I think it was because I was shifting more away from guns maybe. And so I went to EDC Gear Reviews. So what it is now. Yep. I did switch back to putting the guns in there because I started doing more gun videos, and I just thought it was too long of a name. So yeah, it's hard to like come up with a unique name, right? Like your name is really unique. It's good. You know what I mean? Bearded Gear, because I like that. I've always liked it. And I see a lot of guys like lefty EDC, really fits him because he's a lefty,
Right.
But it's just so many channels out there. It's like so hard to diversify yourself from everyone else. So
yeah, when I decided to start mine, I didn't know what I wanted to call it. I'd been on Instagram as Knives, Guns, Cars for a long time, and I posted automotive photography in between pictures of knives and sometimes guns. And I couldn't decide what I wanted my YouTube channel to be called. And so I made a list of like 20 names that I just like spitballed, just threw them all on a piece of paper. And then I picked a couple like silently that I thought were kind of my favorites. Then I showed the list to my wife, And Bearded Gear was one of the like 3 that were at the top of my list. And then the other 2 I thought were good names. I don't remember. I should try to find that list, but they each had EDC in them. And my wife, when I showed her the list, she's like, "It can't say EDC. That sounds dumb." And I was like, "That's because you're not in it. You're not part of the community."
Yeah, that's
like,
funny.
but it's funny because to her, someone from the outside, she was like, it shouldn't say that, because unless you're like in it, then you don't know. If someone stumbles on your channel, you want them to like, everyone knows what gear is, everyone knows what beards are. And so like, I was just like, yeah, it was at the top of my list anyways. Let's go with that. So I just did it.
That's funny.
Made a cheap logo on some random app and then like ran with it, you know?
Yeah. No, that's funny. We'll have to come back to that car conversation. I'm interested in that because
Sure.
I have a background in cars too. So you said you did automobile photography, but let me just grab my water bottle real quick and I'll be right back.
Yeah, no problem. So for those of you who are listening, while Tyler is getting water, since I don't want to cut this out later, keep talking. It's funny. So I was working in automotive when I started watching Tyler's channel, and I was working basically a desk job. Most days I was in the sales office, and there were a few channels that I watched a lot of as I was like really getting into the hobby of knives, and EDC Gear Reviews was one of those channels where he had a lot of content and a library already that I could go back in. So it was like him, slicey dicey, and sorry, I was talking to the people.
No, I heard it all. I've got my earphones in, so my AirPods. So yeah,
perfect. But yeah, so it's interesting. Like, it's funny, if I would have back then when I was getting into the hobby of knives, was watching these YouTube videos, if I had imagined that now, fast forward to today, I'd be hosting my own podcast in this realm and having you on it. One of the channels that, like, not that you're some celebrity or an unreachable person by any means, but like, I just never would have guessed that this would be where my life is right now, that I'd be sitting having this conversation. That's kind of exciting. It's cool that.
No, that is cool. I always like hearing that. I ran into do you know who Mallory Designs is?
Yeah, Dylan Mallory's awesome.
Yeah, he actually, like, I reviewed one of his knives and he reached out to me. He's like, "This is so cool. This is so cool. This is like a full circle experience. Like, I've been watching your channel for years and I'm a big fan. And then you're reviewing one of my knives." And I was like, that is awesome. You know, like, I had no, I love hearing that kind of stuff because it's, you know, it's fun to, because I have been around a long time and I've never really like dedicated a lot of time to this. It's a hobby. Yeah. Something to do on the side. You know what I mean? Like, which is, I think, most of us, right? Sure. You know, there's some of those guys back in the day when I was doing gun stuff that were like quitting their jobs because they were making good money and they could. And I'm like, that was the dream, right? But then all came crashing down, a lot of them. So I knew I kind of always had to like not do this full time and just do it as a hobby. And, you know, I've got a family, 3 kids, and time is, you know, I don't have the most time to do it, but I do enjoy it, so I've continued to do it. I've gone over the last 8 years, I'm sure I've gone on some hiatuses where I didn't upload for a while, you know, but I try to be pretty consistent. I think that's key to, you know, keeping your audience and keeping subscribers and, you know, and such, is just consistently uploading. But so you were working in automotive, like selling cars?
Yeah. So I got started in automotive selling at Lexus, sold there for a little bit, not super long. And then I went from there. I spent like a couple weeks at a Nissan dealership, which was just a terrible, like, no foot traffic, very small, bad to be on floor sales kind of dealership. And that didn't last. Like, as soon as I took that job, I was already looking for other ones. So then I went from there to BMW. I was at BMW for a little while. And then from that BMW dealer, I got out of the business for a little bit, and then ended up going back to a different BMW dealer later. Was there that was the longest dealership I was at. It was in Orange County. Really enjoyed that. And then there was a big like managerial changeover. So at that point I was in internet sales, was doing pretty well. I went from there to Audi. I was at Audi for a little bit before I left car sales and went into aftermarket. And then I worked for an aftermarket parts company and I ran the sales department, a little small startup, just a couple of us there. And so I wore a lot of hats. I got to work closely with the Honda factory race effort for their off-road racing program, which was pretty cool. So yeah, got to like go to off-road races and Mint 400 and Baja and all kinds of fun stuff. And it was interesting. But yeah, in the midst of all that, I was into photography and went to a ton of car meets because that's like what I did for fun. So mostly like LA exotic car meets. And I would just shoot a ton of pictures of cars that I was into and uploaded them for fun. But I hardly ever did it like for money. If so, it was usually because a buddy wanted photos of his car, and then it was like I'd do it for pretty cheap and he'd buy me dinner kind of thing.
Yeah, that's cool. That's funny because I've been in sales my whole life, like pretty much the last 20 plus years.
In automotive?
No, I've never done car sales, and I've always been a car enthusiast. Like I used to race cars back in the day.
Oh, rad.
Yeah. That's why I was curious when you brought that up. I was like, oh, that's kind of was my other hobby for a long time, like before I was married.
Sure.
It's hard to have that hobby when you're married. That's
virtually impossible. Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. So it's replaced by knives and gear and stuff.
Sure.
It really was because I used to do autocross a little bit. I did drag racing, like back in the day when Fast and the Furious first came out.
Yeah.
Rewind a long time. That like sparked my, like interest in fast cars, and I bought an Acura Integra. Was like my first car that I bought with my own money. And
one of my best friends had an Integra in high school, and I loved driving that car.
Yeah, I love that car. That car went from like being bone stock to like being a drag racing 10-second car. And I mean, I had 600 wheel horsepower at the wheels. Like, so I was really into racing and cars and such for a long time. Then I got married and had a kid. So, bought a house, sold the car, and it was kind of like, I didn't really stop there. Like I started getting into Subarus actually, like the WRX and the STIs. And I used to do some autocross, and the Subarus are huge out here in the West. Well, you're in the West, in Utah, and
there's a big WRX culture, and even like Foresters and stuff. My brother's got a Forester that he's all about, and he's got just like the little Cobb tuning kit on it. And
Cobb tuning's in Salt Lake, actually. Yeah. So,
very cool.
Yeah. There was a big scene here for a long time for imports and domestics. We had a racetrack that we did like midnight drags at, so we would stop street racing. And not that I ever street raced, I never did that.
Of course, yeah.
Anyway,
just like I never carry automatic knives.
Exactly. But it was fun because we'd go out there the track and do the midnight drags every Friday night, and I had a bunch of buddies that were big into it. And my next door, like I lived in a duplex when I was first married, and my next door neighbor was like my mechanic and my tuner. Like he was big into doing the dyno tuning and such. He was a genius when it comes to that kind of stuff. He raced pretty professionally actually in sport front wheel drive in HRA. Oh, okay. So I did a few of those. We traveled a little bit, did that for a little while. So, but that kind of came, it came to a halt pretty quick once you have a wife and kids.
Right. Especially the kids.
Yeah. The wife was actually fun. It was fun when we first were married because she would travel with us and, do that kind of stuff. But yeah, as soon as she got pregnant and had the kid, it was like life definitely changed. And, for a good reason, Right. It's kind of funny though, that same friend of mine that was my like mechanic and such, he's still doing it.
Going ham.
Yeah, he just still does tuning and races himself, and his son's like 18, something like that. He races. It's just crazy to see that he's still in that, just his passion, which is cool. He's stuck with it no matter what, but it's an expensive hobby, way more than knives and
right. Yeah. Because it's interesting.
Things break on cars a lot when they're fast.
Yeah. I think part of why I got into knives originally, I'd always carried a knife, been into knives, but I was also always into firearms. But like collecting knives is way easier and cheaper, especially at the entry point. You can definitely get to some knives that cost more than quite a few firearms do. But like for me starting out, it was like I only had one or two guns, and the idea of like spending $500 on something that was just for me, frankly, for fun, was like, I couldn't pitch that to my wife. Well, we've got a kid, like that's not going to happen. Right. So it's like, if I buy this knife that's under $100, that's easy, like that I can do. And then you like get the bug and you end up, now I look at my knife collection. It's like, if I turned that into all guns, I could have a pretty sweet collection of guns too. But they're smaller bites to take,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're 100% right. Like, I got into when I first got into knives, I think everyone does, right? You kind of start with budget knives. You know, I
Yeah.
remember I got a Kershaw. Oh, it was a Warncliffe blade. What was it called?
Is it a
Needs
leak?
work. Yeah, Kershaw needs work.
Mm.
Look that one up if you don't know what that is. But
I
that
don't
was
know
like
what
my
that is.
first like kind of modern, I guess, pocket knife. I had a Gerber Gator and some, some of those like buck traditional knives and stuff. But that was like my first one, and that's actually the knife that kind of got me hooked. That kind of got me started on this whole hobby. So I actually still have it somewhere. I don't think it functions anymore. The speed safe broke on it, which most
Good.
Kershaws do.
Who
And
needs it?
I tried to mod it and do stupid things to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think I practiced sharpening on it. It's like, but I've kept it around forever. But yeah, you got to start somewhere. That's where most people start. That's why I do like to cover budget knives on my channel.
Yeah.
I don't do it as much as I used to, but I try to, just because there's always going to be that new person that's into knives that, like we just talked about, that doesn't want to spend $500 or even $200. To them, a $50 knife's expensive. And
Right.
it's good to do those videos too, because the quality of budget knives is pretty crazy right now. Like, what you can get for the money is way better than at least when I started.
Yeah, even
Blows it out
me
of the
just a
water.
few years ago when I got into like buying knives regularly. I mean, I'd grown up, like I was well aware of, my dad had Benchmades and we had Cold Steels, and like I was never super into Spyderco, but like there were decent knives around. And then when ZT came out, my dad and my brothers and I each got like a ZT. I still have my 0350. It's in my closet, but like when that knife came out, that was like, this is so nice. And it was at the time. Like, if you're not somebody who's deep in the weeds in the hobby, it's objectively a pretty nice knife, especially in 2009 or 10, whatever that was.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the idea of these knives like Civivi and CJRB and some of these like QSP, these companies are blowing out of the water a lot of the features that used to be very cost prohibitive, and it's all just trickled right down to them.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you see it. I mean, Kershaw and even Spyderco with like the Tenacious back in the day, they had those Chinese made knives, and they're just these are all Chinese made knives we're talking about, CRJB and all these, but their quality is way better. Like, not even close, and it's interesting that Kershaw was having those made all those years, and Spyderco and a few other brands overseas, but wasn't reaching that level of quality. So I just don't know if it's an innovation in just over time, which is probably what it is. But
yeah,
I think a lot of these OEMs that were making knives for these companies are now just making their own knives.
Right.
I think that's where they all got kind of their start, right?
It's probably true, or at least
know
people who were involved in those OEMs have created their own. Yeah, that's interesting. Like, when you think about like the budget Kershaws now that are still like $50 and under, feel pretty stagnant. Like they're kind of still what they used to be. Same thing with like CRKT and Gerber and these brands that like play in that range from the US, having been built over there. And yeah, even Spyderco still, they're Chinese, like their best budget offering is probably still the Tenacious. And it's like, hey, what are you guys doing? Like there's other players who are just, unless you just don't care about that segment and you're just trying to ride it out, I don't get why not advance a little,
Yeah, and I think you think about those brands, and they've established themselves in like big box stores like Walmart and Cabela's and Bass Pro Shops, stuff like that. Those kind of sporting goods stores. So you're not going to see. I don't think you will see like a CRJB get into a big box store because of those relationships they have. So there's that market. I bet they do really well in those stores, because that's like the maybe the beginning knife guy like we talked about when we first got in the hobby, or it's just, I've got a lot of friends that are, so this is actually a good conversation for this since you're into guns too, but do you have a lot of friends that are into guns also, or is it mostly just
a decent bit? I'd
So,
probably say I actually have more like real life friends. Like in the hobby, I'm friends with a ton of people that are into knives, but like real life buddies that I've known for a while or gotten to know recently, I have more friends that are into guns than guys that are into knives.
Yeah, and same with me. Like in real life.
Right.
I shoot a lot with a lot of guys, and it's really funny because those guys all carry like cheap beater Kershaw knives, right?
Yep. Unless I've given my friends a better knife, usually that's what you'll find.
Exactly. And we always have this conversation. Like, I have another buddy that's really into knife. He has like his hands on a lot of customs, like really nice customs, like, so we have a mutual friend that's really big into custom knives, and he sells knives for him all the time. Like he has a pretty good sized Instagram page. So he says, "Hey, Eric, sell my knives for me. You know, I just want to move on to this other stuff." He's got just an insane collection. He actually lives like a few streets down from me, which I didn't know until the USN show a couple of years ago. But so he's actually one of those gun guys. He's really big into knives. And he's really big into guns, and he'll post some knives, and sometimes, hey, I'm selling this, guys, and the guys in the gun chat are like, "Oh my gosh, I could buy like 4 AR-15s for that knife," or, you know what I mean? That's a gun. I'm never going to pay that much. And
how many Glock 19s is that? Yeah.
Yeah, and we always have this conversation. We're like, guys, like it's all relative. Like it's about quality of a tool, right? Like it's a really tough conversation to, you know, there's not a lot of guys like you and I or him that are like really into both sides and that get both sides. You know what I mean? There's really not. It's like, and I think I have a little bit of parity with my channel because of that. Like you got those gun guys that watch my gun videos and they don't give a crap about my knife videos. or I've had comments, "Oh my gosh, that's way too expensive. You spend that much money on a knife," you know? And there's just that parity between those two hobbies. Yeah. And I would love to see that come together better. You know what I mean? Because it's I don't know. I don't know why they can't. I can appreciate a $700 knife as much as I can appreciate a $700 gun.
Yeah, I do find
to them they can't. Yeah.
I think a lot of people they do find that it's common ground to be into either or. Not without there are certainly some knife guys who are vehemently anti-gun, and probably I don't know if there's gun guys who are anti-knife, but there's definitely gun guys who aren't into knives. But yeah, I think the big disparity between them is the perceived value of a knife compared to a gun. And I had this when I got into the hobby. Like I said, for me, the idea of spending gun amounts of money on a knife was like, no, like no way. And the first time I broke that rule was with my Koenig Arius. And it was the first time where I was like, I actually do want that knife more than I want a new Glock. Like, and that's really what it is, right? Like, that's a Glock or a Smith & Wesson M&P. Like that's not that nice of a gun, and it's a really nice knife. But there's also like with collectability, that's where everything gets hazy, because the same guys who are like, there's no way a knife should cost that much. You could say that about like a Wilson Combat, whatever, 1911, that's way overpriced compared to a budget 1911 that they both shoot 45 ACP, you know, like the same capacity. Like, you're missing each other on that, and it's about understanding the depth of the hobby, I think, and where the collectability comes into it, and scarcity of they only make this many of those, and that maker is really cool and he uses these special processes. But to the normal person, if a gun is just a gun, then it's like, why would I spend $10,000 on that whatever it is when I could get a gun that also shoots 9mm for 500?
Yeah,
it's the same kind of argument.
It really is. Yeah, and they say it the opposite way. Well, my $30 Kershaw cuts as good as your $400 Strider. Okay,
first of all, it doesn't.
But yeah, well, that's not true. Not
for a moment.
Things, and they do the same motion, and they may, you know what I mean. But
yeah,
and I always will throw back at them. I'm like, well, how often do you use your gun? Like, not very often, unless you're going to the range just to shoot, right? You're not. But how often do you use a knife? It's a daily occurrence. Many times a day for some of us, you know what I mean? Some people more than others, but it's something I use all the time. So I can appreciate having a quality tool that I use constantly. Gun I carry on a daily basis, or I go shooting pretty frequently, but like at the same time, I definitely get way more use out of knives than I do guns. Like, and I hope that's always the case. Hope I'm not using my guns all the time. You know what I mean? Like, that would be a bad thing to be happening. But
if you're training, that's good. But if you're
yeah, but you know what I mean? Like in real life scenarios, like I don't want it. That's not the idea. Is not to have to do that. But
hopefully,
yeah. I mean, it's funny. There's some parity, and I'm starting to. It's kind of fun though, because I have a lot of friends that are into guns and stuff. A lot of them are getting more into knives. So a couple of those guys work at a gun shop. They sell Benchmade and maybe Microtech, kind of the standard ones that are sold in gun shops, like the more tactical style knives, I guess.
Sure.
And they're starting to get into knives. My buddy, I sharpened his. He's got a Benchmade automatic. I think it's the Oh shoot,
Like
models
Infidel or
escaping.
something?
No, it's like a side opening.
Oh,
CLA, I think. Benchmade
sounds right.
CLA. I sharpened it for him because it was. So we were actually came back from shooting one day. We were outside my house, just kind of chatting, and these guys had pocket clips, and I'm always interested in what people were carrying. So I'm like, hey, what knife are you carrying? And the one guy actually, he got out it's an older Benchmade. I can't think of the model. It's discontinued now. It's an automatic, but it had like just a massive like 4-inch blade. It was like almost like a scimitar, shaped kind of blade. I can't remember the model.
Like the Casbah or something?
No, it's a discontinued model, but
Mm.
it was like in the worst shape ever. Just like totally dull and just like nasty. And then my other buddy whips out this Benchmade CLA, and it's completely. And what do? I initially just go right to my arm hair, right? And I'm like, this
Right.
isn't even shaving. This is. Actually, I didn't even do that. I think I just felt that because I knew it wasn't even sharp. So
Yeah.
I just ran my thumb over it. I was like, this is so dull. So it kind of started a conversation. I'm like, hey, I'll sharpen this for you if you want me to. It's like, oh yeah, that'd be great. So since I've done that though, like it sparked his interest. Like he watched my Benchmade Mini Adamas video, and he's like, that is such a great, awesome knife. And we've got them at the shop now. I think I'm going to buy one. And you start seeing that, like,
The
okay.
spark.
And this guy also just dropped like a ton of money on a Staccato C2, like, which are super expensive, right? Like, and it's like kind of funny because, he's kind of starting to go that way with the knife. But you start getting that way with guns too, where you can start climbing up in those, instead of those Glocks, you getting into stuff like that. It's, to me, like, I'm also at that point where I look at that gun. The Staccato's sweet. I don't know if you ever shot one, but they're
I haven't.
just smooth. And it's a 2011, so it's a double stack 1911 essentially.
Right.
Really, really nice, like super flat shooting. But for me, I'm just like, I'm not gonna put down that kind of cash on that. Like, I feel like my, a lot of the guns I have shoot just as nice, and they're striker fired, and it's the same way with knives. Like I don't get into the custom game, and I don't think I will. I did for a little bit. I dabbled in there for a short time. Wasn't for me. I was like, yeah, there's a lot of production knives, high-end production knives is really where I think I land. You know what I mean? That's like my sweet spot. So you kind of find that in any hobby, right? You kind of find that like with knives, you find it with guns, where you're just kind of, you have that peak, that limit that you don't really want to go over. Like you said, like the Arius for you, and the Arius is a beautiful knife, right? Great.
Phenomenal.
And it is gun money. It is like a nice gun money. You know what I mean? But that, I don't know. Do you think what's your limit? Do you have, do you have a limit right now? Do you have a top that you would not go into, not go over,
That's tough because I've broken that rule multiple times in the past now. Like at first it was like, I won't spend over 300. Then it's like, okay, never over 500. And then it's like, for a while, the Arius was the most expensive knife I bought. But then sometimes like there had been a couple of cases where I'd trade like a knife plus cash or 2 knives for something that was worth like $700 or $800. Or just now, like 2 weeks ago, I bought a Holt Haptic.
Oh yeah, that's right.
$1,000. And it's the first time I spent 4 figures on a knife. Like that was a big deal for me. But I don't know, like I think the world of customs is very interesting. And there are certainly some makers that I would love to have pieces from because I've gotten to know them to a degree and I really like them. And I like the production knives, if they have them, that I've experienced. And like that kind of thing is a lot of fun for me. But I'm also like, I struggle when I start seeing like utility decline. It's kind of like with cars. Like there's a whole market of collectible cars that are collectible because they're scarce and not because they're high performance. And for me, it's like if a car happens to be really high performance, super fun to drive, beautiful, and is rare, that's okay. But I don't look at cars just for their rarity, right? I'd be more tempted to look at cars that are undervalued because of some marketing reason that are actually really high performance for the dollar. Like that kind of stuff intrigues me in hobbies in general. But I also never say never. Like there could come a time where you'll catch me spending insane amounts of money. If my financial situation drastically changes, then like maybe I'll spend 10 grand on a knife one day and I'll smile while I do it. But for now, like the Haptic was $1,000. I don't know yet whether it's going to be a long-term keeper for me. I love it. I love it, love it, love it. I'm going to shoot my full review in the next day or two. But it's weird to me to have a knife that's worth $1,000. It's like, I'm
Yeah.
only going to get so much use out of this, not even because I'm unwilling to use it, but because I have so many knives in my collection that I'm always going to be carrying, and I'm going to be carrying whatever's new to review more than anything that I already own. And it's like, is it worth it to me to have $1,000 sitting there solid in a case instead of liquid that I can be using to buy other stuff and try new things? So I don't know. It's this weird gray area.
Yeah.
Do you have like a rule for yourself? Is there a limit?
It's gone up, over the years. And, when I got into Striders, pretty heavy. Striders can get kind of expensive.
Yes, they
But
can.
I never got like above a custom. Like I never got a custom Strider. I've always had just, the standard. Um, I hate to call them production because they don't make very many of them, but you know what I mean? They are technically a production knife.
Small batch.
Yeah, small batch. It's a great terminology. I got into those quite a bit, and I had a bunch of those, but that was kind of like peak, I think, the limit. You know what I mean? I never bought did I ever buy a Grimsmo Norseman? I think I might have, but I got it for way less than what they go for now,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I look at knives like the Arius, the haptic. I'm like, ooh, I would really like that, but I'm like, is it that much? Is it $1,000 knife? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. That I am the same way. I have a hard time spending that much, and like you said, like if my financial situation changed, like when I was driving home from that USN show down in Vegas a couple of years ago, and I had I think $30,000 or $40,000 worth of customs in my car.
So you were about as proxy or what?
Yeah, well, I was bringing them back for our friend that lives here. They flew, and he didn't want to check them, and he's like, "Hey, since you're driving home," and I was like, "Well, absolutely," It's like, "Yeah, feel free to check him out," and I didn't even touch him.
Yeah,
I didn't touch one of them. I looked at him and I was like, "This is too much money." Like, I'm afraid if I do something, like I don't want to be liable.
The cost of a scuff. Yeah,
I don't want to be. It's a 10th. I mean, I can't even remember all the makers, man, but some custom stuff that I hadn't even heard of, like makers. I was like, who? I'm like,
your pay grade. Yeah.
Oh, way, way, way above my pay grade. And it's funny because I look at a lot of they're more art, really, to me. You know what I mean? I think you get to that point where a knife is more art than it is tool,
Yeah.
And I'm like, there's no way he carries these. Like, there's no way he carries and uses these knives. And for me, I've kind of always not been a collector. I don't want to say. I mean, people would call me a collector that aren't into knives,
Right.
But I have a pretty modest number of knives. I don't have a lot of knives. And
you're an enthusiast.
Yes, I'm definitely an enthusiast, and I'm a user. Like, I use every single one of my knives. I carry them, use them. And I can't, if something doesn't get used, I sell it. Like, I'm not going to use this. It's just going to sit. I don't have like boxes full of Spydercos. Do you follow, is it Keith Kevin Ken, or what is his name on Instagram and YouTube?
That's his name on YouTube.
Yeah.
I don't want to be a jerk, but because of his voice, I can't watch his videos. His intro, I can't. I'm sure he's a very nice guy, but his intro voice, every time I start to hear it because I accidentally click on one of his videos, I can't do it. That's a thing about me. I just don't like that voice. But
hey, you know what? I feel the same way about someone very popular in our community, and that's all I'm going to say.
Sure.
But he's been posting pictures of his Spyderco collection. He has like an insane.
He's a collectors club member, yeah. So he gets literally everything.
Yeah, he's got hundreds of Spydercos, and I'm thinking, I think he's up in the 400s or 500s, and I'm like, what would you even do with all those? Like, just sit in a box somewhere and a shelf, and more power to him. That's what he's into. That's his money. I'm not going to tell him how to spend his money. That's cool, whatever. Mm-hmm. But I just realized that's not me. It's never going to be me. I'm just never going to. And I'm the same way with guns. I've had so many guns, like, oh my gosh. And I just, if I don't shoot them a lot, if I don't, if it's not something I carry for my concealed carry, or something I train with, like, I've narrowed down my guns to like carry guns and AR-15s. Like, essentially that is like literally like I have like two shotguns and a long range rifle. But most of my stuff is very like purpose driven. Like, it's like, okay, this is what I train with. This is what I would use for self-defense if needed. And
there's an application for everything in your collection. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's the same with knives. It's literally exactly the same, So, and that's just who I am. And that's going to be completely different than, especially that guy,
Right.
with his 500 Spydercos. Like, and that's cool. I mean, that would be really cool to go through his collection and just see every
Sure.
Spyderco that's been made. I think he probably has,
Like
right?
a museum. Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be cool, but it's like there's no, and he'll do. I don't follow him on YouTube either, but I follow him on Instagram just because I like looking at he's got some nice pictures usually, and he's got some just cool Spydercos, and he has. I think he's just more than Spydercos. I mean, he has a lot of Chris Reeve knives.
Yeah.
That he collects. He's got. I wonder. I remember I asked him a question. I was like, where do you store all these? And he's like, he told me how many Pelican cases he had full, and I was like, holy crap, that's a lot, So, and to me, like that brings up another point is Pelican cases are really popular, and I have one. I have this. No, is it a Pelican? Yeah, it's a Vault, but it has like the is it Nalpak? Is that how you say that?
Nalpak. Yeah.
Nalpak inserts, and it's not like your standard. It's got like a special insert. I don't know. I don't want to hold it up because the knives are gonna fall out of it. I can't really. But
I got you.
They lay horizontally. They don't like stick in.
Yeah.
And I like that because I can look at them and I can like pick one out. But like I see guys at knife meets and stuff all the time that just have hundreds of knives stuck in these pellet cases, and I'm like, I can't. But to me, that's not hundreds. You know what I mean? It's like that. Yeah, same idea. Yeah, they just poke them out. And for me, I like to like visually look at them, and I don't know, it's a weird thing for me. You know what I mean? I'm like, I get it's a great way to store knives, 100%.
Right.
Do you know who Epic Snuggle Bunny is?
Yeah.
He's a
Austin,
YouTuber,
right?
Yeah, Austin used to live in Utah, and he now lives in Arizona, I believe. But he used to come to all of our knife meets. There's a custom knife maker here that lives really close to me, Ryan W. Knives. He makes a lot of nice, like really nice fixed blades.
Okay.
But he does like a meet every year at his house, and so we'd have a bunch of knife guys from Utah that get together, and me and Austin would just chat all the time because we both did YouTube. And he had like the same way. He's like, whenever he'd come, he'd have all his knives in spider packs because you could open them up and visually see them, And I was like, that's really it's funny to see how people store their knives. I'm like, for some reason, really into that, and I change it constantly. Like, how many times have you changed the way you store your knives? Like, that would be a good question for not just you, but like anyone watching this video. I mean, hopefully not as many times as I have, but
yeah, for me, it's just been incrementally as my collection has inherently gotten bigger and bigger. Before my channel, I tried to hold my collection to the case I had at the time had 20 or 25 slots. And it was like, that was what I kind of capped my collection at. It's like, it has to all fit in here for folders. With the collection, that's gone right out the window. And now I use these Cutlery Shop cases because Jeff from Cutlery Shop sent me both of them and was really cool of him. And they work great.
Oh, yeah.
But also, like, I live in a pretty small apartment and there's not much space in here that I can call my own. So to me, I would love if I have like an office space in wherever we live next, that's like my office space, and I can really set it up how I want it, then like I'll have some sort of display where at least some of the parts of my collection that I want to look at will be on display, and it'll be in a way that I can grab them and carry them. Because like you, I don't keep knives around that I don't carry, but it is nice. Like, I find even with these cases, I'm constantly every couple of days rounding up some knives from around the house because there'll be some on my desk. There's some on the table by the couch because I like to have them out and be fidgeting with them and playing with them. And like, it does me no good if they're just in here and the cases are sealed up somewhere. I need to be able to like get them.
Yeah. Yeah. No, totally. I've done spider packs. I've done like display cases, like Michaels that you buy for like, I had
like
them on
plexiglass ones.
Yeah. I've had them on walls. My wife's just always giving me crap. Like, you change the way you store your knives every 5 months, I swear. So I've actually had this vault case for a while, and I do like it, but I just wish it was more on display and easier to get. But I do like the transporting of knives. This is the best way for sure.
Yeah,
no doubt about it. But yeah, so Austin, he was a big fan of the spider pack. He had a couple of them there with all his knives, and that was like the first storage thing I ever bought. I think was a spider pack.
Oh, rad.
Yeah, but I'm the same way. Like, I limit what my knife case holds. That's if it exceeds that, I am selling some usually. And I have those we all have those knives that we won't sell.
Right.
There's not a lot.
My problem is that number keeps growing. Like,
I know,
it
right?
used to be I had like 3 or 4 that were like totally off limits, and now it's like 10. And it's like, well, then even if I sell a whole bunch of stuff, then like those 10 take up a lot of room all on their own. It's like, why am I really trying to get rid of all these if I'm already going to have a bunch anyways? I play these mental gymnastics to.
Oh yeah, we all do.
I'm always convincing myself what to sell because I have to sell things to chase more new things. So that's the way it goes.
No, I think that's part of the hobby too. There's not too many guys that buy things and don't ever sell. I think that was really funny. I was watching the what did they call their live show?
On the Edge.
On the Edge, yeah. When you guys were trying to get, is it Kyle? Is that right?
Yeah,
no,
Kyle.
Oh, Kyle.
Yeah. Kyle's DTOM. Yeah.
To sell his knives. He's
Yep.
like, I don't know. You know, it's so funny. Like, Kyle, move some of your knives you don't carry and use. Like, come on, you know.
Right. Well, Lefty and I, we had just gone through this like purge. His much bigger than mine, but like I had sold like 6 or 7 knives, and it was to fund the haptic and my new shield. And so, like, in order to fund these things, I needed to move some pieces and liquidate, and like that's how it was going to work. And so I sold a bunch of stuff and made it happen. And then Kevin was like, I'm going to sell a couple knives. And then he like got some bug while he was doing it and sold like a few $1,000s worth of knives in a couple of days. And it was just like, this is amazing. And now I've got this room to bring in new stuff. And if I see something I want, I can just buy it because now I have the money. And he's like on this whole thing. And then Kyle's like, yeah, I've been thinking about selling 1 or 2. And we're like, dude, you have so many knives that you never carry. And that like weren't gifts like you bought. Like there's no reason why you have to keep them. We get that you like them, but like you never carry them. Why keep them around? Free up some buying power, you know? And it's just funny because he's so resistant to it, but we'll get him.
Yeah. And there's the same way with guys and the gun guys too. Like I've sold so many guns over the years, and just to do the exact same thing, to buy new ones, you know what I mean? And I've always had this understanding with my wife that like, as long as if I'm bringing something in, I might, you know, sometimes I have to sell something to bring it out and to bring that new thing in, you know, and it's like, with knives, she gets it. There's no way that she could possibly keep track of all of it.
Right.
Because it's constantly, there's just like a round robin effect going on. It's always happening. But I think I'm actually at a point with guns though, that I'm like, probably not going to sell anything. Because I think I've got to a point where they're all purpose driven. They're all, you know, serve a purpose of some sort. And unless I get like a new one that I'm not like fond of, and I'll sell it, you know, because I didn't like it. But for the most part, I'm pretty solid on those. I don't think I'm going to be selling much there on that front. Knives, it's always changing on knives, though. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I have a pile of knives downstairs that I'm getting ready to list. You know what I mean? That I'm probably going to do a video on and just move. And it you know how it is as a reviewer. It's totally different as a knife reviewer versus just an enthusiast or collector, right? Like, because you're wanting to get new things in, obviously for your own personal use, but also for content purposes, right?
Yep.
You can't just keep reviewing the same 20 knives you have.
Right. And I find it's also more fun to review a knife that I bought than to take a loaner in, even though I appreciate loaners and like it can mean a lot when there's somebody sends a knife to review. Even if they're like, use it as hard as you want and all that stuff, it's still like, it just feels, it's a different process when it's a knife I spent my own money on and get to put through its paces like I spent my money on it, you know? And yeah, I'm always selling and buying and trading. And I have 3 packages sitting right here to unbox on camera after we finish this. And like, that's just the way it goes. But I'm also at the post office several times a week, sending a couple packages at a time, because if I don't, then it all stops, you know?
My next door neighbor across the street, she actually works at the post office. I see her there all the time. And she's probably like, "Why you're here all the time shipping packages out?"
You should just send them to work with her. Just catch her on the way out.
Hey, Wanda, just take these with you, would you? You know, because I always print the labels, and I walk in front of like 20 people in line, and I look at those people, and I'm like, you guys know that you can do this online, right? I just drop them off at the counter and leave. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. If there's no line, I'll make them scan them in front of me because I like to do that. But if there's a line, I'm just dropping those off. Take a picture as I'm putting them in. See ya.
Yeah.
Don't
not
have time
waiting
for
on long line. Yeah. Ain't know what I got time for that. Yeah,
so
I know.
I find it interesting that you've said your gun collection or the guns you own have evolved a little over time, and now you're at a place where you feel like not that you're done, probably. I'm sure there will be
No.
guns that catch your attention in the future, but
sure.
you're happy with where it is and you don't foresee letting go of them. When I was a kid, my dad had a vast collection of guns. He's just been a gun nut my whole life. And during some more difficult financial times, he ended up selling almost all of his guns. He's still got a few, but it's not like it was when I was a kid. Like we had 2 large safes in our garage bolted down, and each of them was full to the brim. And then there were small safes throughout the house. It was like, I was a lot of variety of guns that I got to shoot. And it was, as a kid, my dad was paying for ammo, and it wasn't like it is now. And it's just like, I shot a lot of things all the time, and my dad's friends would come with us and they had interesting stuff to shoot. So I was pretty lucky that I feel like I got to experience a lot of different firearms. Whereas like I have friends now, or my brother-in-law, just since COVID, bought his first firearm. He was one of those people who texted me as soon as it, like, everything was going crazy here in LA. He's like, "Hey, do you have anything I could borrow?" I was like, "Absolutely not. Nope." But he just didn't know, you know?
Yeah.
And so then he got, I think the first gun he bought was like a Glock 22. And then now, since then, he has more guns than I do. All of a sudden, in the last like 6 months, he's just been buying like crazy. But he has no taste yet. He's just buying whatever catches his eye in the moment. And there's things that he owns that for sure he doesn't even like. And he might not even know it yet because he's only been to the range with it once or twice. And he doesn't like have that time and experience to build off of. But for you, how have you gotten to where you are now? Has it been like a pretty gradual refining of your taste, or did you just have to like get some curiosity out of the way? Like what kind of got you to where it's like, I think you said mostly striker fired and like ARs.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. I mean, I think it's a little bit of experience. Like I think I've dabbled in everything, you know, I mean, not everything, but I've owned hundreds probably.
Plus, if you're at the range with buddies a lot, you're probably shooting some of what they've got.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you just get to a point where you're like, okay, this is what I like, and it works well. And, you know, there's no reason to, you know, move to like, so I use my buddy at the Staccato. It's a 2000 or 2011. It's got a manual safety. It's got the grip safety, you know, like 1911s do. And he's used to shooting Glocks and stuff, which are, you know, striker fired, no safety. And it's a manual of arms. It's a training thing. Like you have to train with those things, you know.
You got to get that muscle memory down. Yeah,
exactly. And I see him struggle with that a little bit. And for me, it was like, I'm just going to simplify everything. Like, because I could pick up any striker fired gun and shoot it well, just because I'm used to shooting them, you know. Same with the AR-15 platform. I used to have some pretty nice exotic, like the Tavor, a bullpup, you know, which is like a $2,000, you know. It's essentially an AR-15 and a bullpup, you know. Same
I've fired a
magazine.
Tavor before.
Yeah, and they're really cool, right? But like for me, it was like it came down to, I've tried a lot of stuff and I know what I like, and it came down to more purposeful shooting. So I used to be let me go to the range and plink kind of guy, which is I think majority of shooters, right? I think that's you're explaining everyone pretty much doing that.
Yeah, not many people are shooting in motion and going through drills and from retention like. That's not or from concealment. That's most people aren't practicing any of that. They've got a table in front of them and they're shooting at paper, and maybe they're pushing it out a little further and then they're shooting at it again. And that's it.
Yeah. And I used to do that. Like I think that's where you kind of start, right?
Sure. It's better than nothing for sure.
It definitely is. And it's still fun to do that. Like I still do that with my kids. I have some 22s. I'll take my kids out and we'll do that. And it's a good time. But I just felt like, geez, one day I got the bug. I think I went to a course years ago at Front Sight. Have you ever heard of Front Sight? It's a training facility down outside of Vegas.
Yeah.
They're kind of obnoxious, actually. They have like seriously over the top marketing. So,
I had a buddy who he and his dad were like members of it. And
I'm a member too. I haven't been in years. I've been twice, but it was good because it really taught me. They do really good training, actually. You know, I wouldn't put them up there with like the best at all, but especially for new shooters, it's good for them to go through that course. I took my mom down there because back in Sandy Hook. I can't always mess that up, but she was a teacher, and that school shooting happened in Connecticut, you know, and so the schools in Utah encouraged teachers to get their concealed carry permits and get a firearm and be able to carry at schools and, you know, to have it in their classroom kind of thing protect schools from mass shootings, essentially, you know?
Yeah.
And she wanted to get some training, and I'd already been there once, and that's kind of where I started getting into consult. And I had my permit, and I was carrying, and I took her down there, and she got some training, and you know, she was brand new shooter, right? You know, and I had shown her a few things, but she learned so much in that, and it was so beneficial that it kind of got me on this bug of like, I really want to do more of that, like, you know, push myself, not just sit at a table and shoot targets, because if you're going to conceal carry, if you're going to, you know, take that responsibility on you, which it is, you know, I don't take it very lightly. I want to make sure that I'm very proficient in it. And that's where I got really into doing that. And then I met with a bunch of guys here locally that had the same idea, essentially. And they were getting together and shooting them, but they weren't just shooting. They were training. They were like doing drills. They were working on malfunctions. That, you know, you
Shooting
saw
from
some
cover. Yeah,
my Instagram videos, you see some of those drills we run, right?
Yeah,
We
you just
shoot
posted
move
yesterday, or was it today? Where you were doing with pistol and with your AR, you were running between zones, and that is the whole thing.
It's super fun. First of all, it's way fun. Like, if no one's done it and you want to break out of like that mundane, like shooting a shooting wrench at a shooting range, and every 5 minutes they say cease fire and reset target, you know, I just got so tired of that. I was like, oh God,
you should start there. You should learn the basic fundamentals and your manual of arms on what you're going to be shooting there. But there's definitely levels to it.
So I got into that, and that's really where I've been for the last couple of years. And I think that's what's changed to circle back to your question, that's what's changed my collection. Is it's been very like, okay, I'm just gonna, you know, I'm very familiar with the AR platform. I'm gonna get a few of those, and you know, the only kind of guns I buy are gonna probably be ARs, you know. And as far as pistols, I like, and I'm not just a Glock. I mean, I don't even have a Glock. Actually, I do have a Glock 19X. But I have a lot of striker fired guns, and a lot of them I carry, you know, and I kind of rotate them, and it's kind of like knives to me. Like, I rotate my carry knife, I can rotate my carry gun too. You know, I don't carry the same one every day, but I train with all those, you know, and so that's really what changed my outlook on guns, you know. I don't see that for happening with knives, because it's like you don't really train with knives unless you're like a knife fighter or something, but you know what I mean? But like, you're
using them a lot, which makes you more proficient and comfortable at having them in hand and doing things with them, at least. So it's funny, the timing of this, I just within the last like month or two, I live in Los Angeles County, which the entire time
I was wondering, I was going to ask you about that.
So that has always meant, as long as I've lived here, that they will not issue a CCW unless you are literally a judge or an insanely high profile individual. They just won't. Like, it used to even say, if you went on the Sheriff's Department website, it was like, don't fill this out, we're not going to give it to you. Like, there was a disclaimer, like, don't even try. And recently they've started issuing. The LA County Sheriff's Department so in the last couple months, from what I understand, they've approved like over 600 people out of a couple thousand applicants. So that's what sparked me finally getting a subcompact. So today my 10 days finally went up. This is safe, by the way, but I finally picked up a Shield, which even then is super frustrating, because in California it's a Shield 1.0. You can't even get the 2.0 because it's just not on roster. And there's no SIG P365. There's no Springfield Hellcat. There's no
because of the magazine limit,
Well, not even the magazine limit. It's just whether it's on roster or not. Because like I own a SIG P226. And they sell a California compliant version that just has 10 round magazines, has it won't fire without a mag inserted, and then it has a loaded chamber indicator on top. So like this one, if I put one of these are snap caps. If I put one of these in here, it's got this loaded chamber indicator up top.
So that is so obnoxious.
I have a delete for it already that I'm gonna put in. You just drive a pin through it, and you put, there's a no one that doesn't stick up, and then leaves a window so you can still peep in and see whether there's a round in the chamber. Anyways, what's frustrating for me is like, I finally am having my freedom kind of given to me, right? Where it's like, maybe they'll give me one. I have to apply now that I have the gun. That's going to be the primary carry gun for me. But in California, best I can figure out on my own, that is the best 9mm subcompact that you can possibly buy. And it's the one that came out in 2012. It's not the 2.0. And
Yeah.
I have extended base plates, so I can take these 7-round mags up to 9. I can take the 8 rounds with the Hive extension up to 10. So I can still be 10 plus 1 in a relatively small, slim package. But it's just like the fact that the roster exists and I can't get those other subcompacts that I would prefer to purchase. It's like super frustrating. But now that that's happening, I need to, with this new firearm that the goal is for me to carry, I'm going to be doing a whole lot of range days. And luckily here, there's a range where you can rent like private bays, and there you can shoot from concealment, or you can draw and shoot. You can run drills. You can do, it's your bay.
Yeah.
You're going to do whatever you want. And I know one of the guys who like manages it, which is nice. But then also I have a family member who has some property up in the desert. And so my brother-in-law, who's now getting super into firearms, we just bought some steel targets, and we're going to go and like make a nice little outdoor range where first I can kind of teach him some stuff because he's new to it, but I can also train in a way that you can't just do at a static range. But yeah, it's funny that this is the most like gun conversation I've had on my podcast for sure. And so it's cool that now this is the episode with you on the day that I picked this up, and it's I was wondering about
that. You had mentioned to me on I think Instagram about it or something, where I can't remember if it was there, but I was curious about that because I knew you lived in California, and I knew that, you know, they have some pretty strict gun laws there. So I have a buddy that's a sheriff in California. I can't remember where, but because he's a sheriff, he can buy more firearms, but they limit what he can buy. Like he can only buy like, I can't remember what the limit is, one a month, which is plenty. I mean, geez, I'm not
you can buy
one,
one handgun a month. With rifles, you can buy, it's a little more open season. You can just kind of buy whatever you want.
So even as a law enforcement officer, he's still limited,
Same
which
rule.
is like, what? But I think he can carry more rounds. I know that for a fact.
Correct.
Like I know some of his guns are like just like mine, you know, just because he's in law enforcement. But
when we did have a Freedom Week too, where that rule was overturned for literally a week, and I bought so many magazines. I wish I had bought some. I guess this doesn't even go higher than this unless I'm getting stupid, like way stuck out ones. But like for my SIG, I've got a couple of 20 rounders, a couple of 18 round flush fits, and then I have a Ruger PC carbine that takes Glock 9mm magazines, and so I bought a bunch of the big Glock, like ridiculous
33 round.
Yeah, exactly. So
yeah, those are fun. That's a fun gun. I had a PC carbine for a while.
I enjoy it. It's great, and it's nice to have the same mags that'll go in my Glock and be able to, if I wanted to, like my rifle carbine and my sidearm would be the same ammunition. Is kind of the idea of like, I can literally run the same mags in either. Is kind of cool, but it's heavy though. The M-Lock one that I have.
Yeah, they're nice looking. They have. I think I had the takedown one. Is it takedown? Is it dual and takedown? Yeah, that's a pretty cool idea.
Yeah, they'll all take down. It's basically like the 1022 takedown, but just 9mm takes Glock mags, so it works.
Yeah, that was a good idea. It's weird that Glock has never brought one out. Like Ruger brought out a gun that takes Glock mags. Like many companies have brought out guns that take Glock mags.
Yeah, a lot of AR9s.
Yeah, it's so weird to me. I'm like, why would you not capitalize on that market? Like, come on. I've never understood that with them.
Glock is one of those brands that gets me to scratch my head a lot in terms of what I don't know. I think they're one of those brands who just like, we are what we are and we're not going to change. And they'll make subtle, small improvements. They'll come out with things that they say are new, but it's all this exact same gun, just in a slightly different iteration.
Yeah, they're like the Chris Reeve of guns, right? They haven't changed much in the last 20 years, and they sell tons of knives though. Like so does Glock, sells tons of guns, you know, and they have a big following, and it's a very similar. I've never thought of that before, but it's actually pretty spot on. You know, they're pretty similar as far as that goes. So,
and the guys who are really into Chris Reeve and the guys who are really into Glock will defend that they are the best
to their death,
no matter what.
Yep. Yeah. It's so spot on. It's so true. Yeah. I mean, I like Glocks. I have one. I have a Shadow Systems MR920, which is like essentially completely decked out Glock. It's not a
Right.
Glock anymore though. I think it's based on the Gen 319, but there's nothing Glock on it. But it takes Glock holsters and magazines, and
And
it's
if you
actually
were to put a Glock
superior.
slide on it, you could, right?
Yeah, and it's superior to a Glock in any way, shape, or form. Like it's but it's a pretty pretty pricey gun. But I do like them. There's nothing they work flat out. But yeah, but sometimes they come out with guns like the Glock 43, for example. Like, wait, what? 6 rounds? Like,
Right.
what are you doing? The Shield already had like 7 or 8 in it.
Yeah,
And they weren't
the
even in that
little
market.
mag is 7, and then it comes with the 8-rounder, and that's like with the Glock, you can get the extended ones that take you up to where this goes. But if you add an extended one to this, like the Hive one, you're literally at +2 on that 8-rounder. You're at 10, and that's pretty good for me. Like I'm all right with that.
It's just, and they didn't even bring that out first. They brought out their Glock 42 first, the
Right.
380.
380. Yeah.
380. That like everyone's bringing out 9mm small carry guns. That was the future of carry. 380 was like left in the dust, and Glock comes out with a new 380, and I'm like, what? And they sold tons of them. Like, I mean, probably more than the Shield is actually one of the best selling guns ever, I think. But then they brought out the 43, which didn't compete with the current guns at the current time. And then like SIG came out with 365, which really revolutionized carry guns, in my opinion. Like 10 rounds in that tiny
micro compact, yeah. And then the Hellcat came out right after that and added another round.
Yeah. And then Glock, what did they do? They brought out a 10-round gun. What? And it's bigger. The 43X is much bigger.
It's like the size of a 19. It's just thinner.
It is exactly the size of a 19. I'm like, why wouldn't I just carry a 19 that has 15 freaking bullets in it? Like, what? Yeah, I've never understood that. And then, even when they had the opportunity to make the 43X a double stack, they made a single. And then a company, Shield Arms, comes out and makes 15-round mags for it and sells them for like $60 a piece, which is just crazy for a magazine, right?
Right.
And it's like, why didn't Glock do that? You know what I mean? It's one of those things people ask, but they have the biggest aftermarket support of anyone by far. Like there's no gun company that touches Glock when it comes to aftermarket support. There's just really not. Like, so I think I think that's part of their business model. They're like, well, we'll put these crappy plastic sights on all our guns because everyone's going to switch them out anyway for, a pair of Mariglows or, Trigicons or whatever, I mean, it's going to be something different. And
like Spyderco with their clips. They know that everyone's going to get a Lynch clip or an MXG clip or whatever kind of clip it is. There's a bunch of options out there, and they're pretty inexpensive, and they come in whatever color you want. And it's like, why would they? And I think they've even said, like, we don't plan to offer a deep carry clip because we like that the aftermarket just handles it. It's like,
yeah. And I think Glock feels exactly the same way. They really do. You get it like a gun like the Hellcat. Like I just got one of those recently, and out of the box, it's like pretty feature heavy. It's got it's cut for an optic because they came out. Oh, that was another thing that Glock missed out on.
No optic cut until very recently, right?
Very recent, but it's like, well, you're already way behind again. You know what I mean? Like you got the SIG 365 XL came out, and then the Hellcat came out, and then you know what I mean? Like a bunch of guns started coming out with them. That was actually one thing that was really interesting to me was Smith & Wesson took a long time
for the Plus
on the Shield. The Shield was such a big selling gun, and to keep up with the market, they really needed to go, double stack. So it's like a staggered, not really a double stack.
It's like 1.5 stack, basically.
Yeah, 1.5 stack. Yeah, and they just came out with it, and I'm like, good job, but you're like a few years late on this. You know what I mean? And same with Ruger. Like you guys are behind the game, and I like to see those U.S. gun companies be competitive, but it's like you guys are, you're left behind right here. Like, and the Shield Plus is great. Like I think what was smart about it was they used the same footprint. So all the holsters that you have is like, so for whatever reason, one day you could get a double stack magazine.
Oh, if it goes on roster, I will buy a Shield Plus. Yeah.
Yeah. You could get that and it would use the same not magazines, but same holsters, like, right? A lot of the same accessories.
For me, I'm left-handed with firearms. I'm right-handed with knives, so I'm a weirdo in that way. But so with guns, I've always been left-handed. I write left-handed, I shoot left-handed, and I eat left-handed. That's like the extent of what I do with that hand. But for me to switch to a new version of that gun, if it takes all the same holsters and everything that I've gotten used to carrying it in, that's a huge advantage. Whereas like if you're talking about, I don't know, if I'm looking at Glock 19 accessories and then I go from a Gen 3 to a Gen 5 and I need a new holster and I'm right-handed, it's not that big of a deal because on the shelf there is a billion options for for that Glock stuff. But for me to get the holster that I've got on the way for this, I had to go through A&R Design, who's one of the few Kydex holster makers that I'm aware of, whose work I know I like, that will do a left-handed option and make it easy, and it works well. And it's like, I've got to wait a couple weeks because I had to have it custom made, and it's not crazy expensive, like cost prohibitive, but it's way more expensive than most off the shelf, ready to ship right-handed holsters, you know. And it's like, that's a thing for me that makes a big difference. Is if I'm considering a firearm, that's something I need to think about, is like, is there going to be on the shelf stuff for me as a shooter? Is it prolific enough that for me as a left-handed shooter, can I get the stuff for it? And if not, then I have to know exactly who I'm going to, and that custom person will make a holster for it. Because even then, if I get some really weird gun and I want to have a custom holster made for it, a lot of the guys that I would probably choose to use might not even have a blue gun or one to work off of or whatever it is to make me one. So kind of the way it goes.
Yeah, no, it was a smart marketing for sure on that front, but I feel like they missed the opportunity to kind of update it. Besides making it, 1.5 stack or whatever, they did do the optics cut, but they didn't do it on all models. And I was like,
just the performance center one, right?
Do it on the regular ones, like like the Hellcat comes that way. Well, you can buy the regular or you can buy the optics cut, like. And they should have done that. The only one they make is the Performance Center, and it comes with like their Crimson Trace crappy optic that I wouldn't use at all. And it's like $900. And I'm like, you just priced yourself out of this market. Like, so I think their marketing was smart when it came to like the same accessories, and like, for you, for example, that's a good fit. But I think they're a little behind, you know what I mean, on features, I guess you'd say,
Yeah.
The Ruger one that came out, the Max 9, I think that's going to be a pretty hot gun because Ruger's a little bit less expensive usually than the Smith & Wessons, and it does come optics ready, and it does have like the 1.5 stack, but it was missing like the accessory rail, which I was like, at least Glock got that right on their new ones.
Right.
They did add that accessory rail, and Surefire and Streamlight have both now made a proprietary light for those guns.
Well, yeah, that's 43X. Like for this, the only light that goes on it is there's a Streamlight TLR6 that's specific to this frame, and it's really just mounting to the trigger guard, and then it's hugging up against here. And it's like, I got one because if I ever want to throw a light on it, that's the only one I can throw on.
And it's like 100 lumens. It's not very bright. Yeah, I had one on my 365. So I was, that's one way it pushed me towards the Hellcat and the 365. I have both of those guns, and the 365 has a proprietary rail, which is like, come on,
why?
And the Hellcat doesn't. It has like but it's such a small rail that there's not a lot of lights that fit it. So it's nice that like Surefire and Streamlight are both coming out with one for those kind of guns. So I think like Smith & Wesson just put a rail on there, but it wouldn't work the holster. So I guess that was their angle, on the marketing. But
yeah, I think Springfield really did kind of crush it. Like I remember when I first saw that gun announced, I was like, that looks just like a P365. And then I looked at all the comments and everyone was like, is this a P365 clone? Like it looks eerily similar,
very similar
to a P365, but they claimed they'd been designing it for years and it just happened. Whatever. Like that beside the point.
Punch. Yeah.
Right. The fact that they came out of the gate with more capacity than anybody else in a size as small as anybody else, and with a better rail, the option for an optic cut, like right out of the box, all of that. I mean, it's just, it makes a ton of sense. And
the texturing on the grip is really well done. It has forward, like towards the front of the slide, like where your kind of where your thumbs would land. I'm trying to get this in frame. It has texturing up here. Like a lot of people will do that aftermarket on
like
yeah, right there. Yeah, they have texturing right there, and it's like a little shelf for your thumb to rest in, and that really helps you keep that muzzle flip down. And they thought of that out of the box, and no one does that. Like that's an
But a ton of people in the
aftermarket.
aftermarket stipple that spot like crazy.
They do, yeah. So I thought, God, that's that. I mean, they really did knock it out of the park with that gun. The only like negative I've heard, well, I've experienced one negative, not malfunctions or anything, but it's a problem on all the Springfield guns that I've had, like the XDS. I used to carry that one for years. The slide release is in a bad spot, like where my thumb rests when thumb's forward. This thumb here, it rests on that thumb release.
So you're keeping it from locking back a lot of the
time.
So
when I am like doing malfunction, or I'm doing like one-on-one drills, and I want that slide locked, right? And I go to put that magazine in, it doesn't reset the slide, and it's like click, and I'm like, what? I had the same issue with the XDS, and I'm like, oh.
See, as a lefty, I'd be fine.
You would be, yeah, you'd be great. But me, and I think most guys, I'm like, how are people not writing this? And they actually, like, on the grip, they have like an indentation almost where they want you to put your thumbs to avoid that, but it's not natural. Like when I pick up the gun, it's not. And so I was like actually picking up my 365 today, and my Shadow Systems, and my CZP10S, and I was like, I don't have this issue on any other gun. It's a Springfield thing. So that is one issue for me that I've experienced with that, which is kind of a big one. Like, I want that slide to come back. I want it to lock. And if I'm right in that and it's not doing that, that could lead to an issue. The other thing is people have said it's pretty snappy when they shoot it. The recoil is a little bit more than the 365 and the Shield. I mean, granted, it's smaller than the Shield by quite a bit. I mean, it's a small gun, dude. I think the 365 is the only one that's the same size.
Yeah.
And the 365 does shoot softer. It's not as snappy. So luckily, though, SIG just came out with, see, one thing I will give SIG super props for on the 365 and on their new guns is the modularity that they have. It's crazy. Like, you can go buy grip modules, and you can put a 365 XL grip on the shorter slide, and, you can put the longer slide on the shorter grip, and it, because the serialized part is in the fire control group, which is really innovative.
Plucks
it's really
right
cool.
out and plops into anything.
Yeah. So they just came out with a 365X, they call it, where it's the shorter slide of the 365, but on the longer 365 XL grip, which I'm sure is going to be really popular. But for me, what I was trying to accomplish with that gun, because I carry a larger gun on daily. I carry that Shadow. It's like a Glock 19, essentially. I carry that size of gun on a daily basis. But there's times that I definitely want something smaller. You know what I mean? And I was telling you, like, we were chatting on Instagram, like I carry on that VanQuest fanny pack, that dendrite.
Yeah.
And I'll carry that to like this amusement park we go to. We get season passes. It's pretty close to us. They have like a water park. It's just nice to have it in there, and I can carry it at the same time. I couldn't pull off anything else. Like, I just really couldn't. Like, being in a bathing suit, where are you gonna put that?
Right.
And it only fits that smaller 365. So I got the Hellcat to kind of replace that because it was optics ready. But then SIG, of course, after I bought the Hellcat, what do? They come out with a 365X, and they're so smart that they said, we're going to sell that slide with the optics cut.
So you can just throw that slide on.
You just buy that slide. And I'm like, so guess what I ordered today? That.
There you go.
Because I don't know if I'll keep the Hellcat. I might. Utah just passed constitutional carry, so you don't have to have a permit to carry anymore in Utah. It goes into effect in May, and my wife has never had a permit, and I've tried to get her to carry, so I'm going to try to like maybe convince her to carry one of those two. But yeah.
So that's got to be nice too, because I don't know if it's the same in Utah, but here in California, if you apply for a CCW, you can only apply with up to 3 firearms, and you have to have them when you apply. You can't switch them out during the 2 years that your CCW is active. So like for me, I have to pick what are my ideal 3 firearms that I would potentially carry for the next 2 years. And those are the ones that you get to carry. So the idea that especially with constitutional carry, I imagine your CCWs are probably less prohibitive even than ours are. But
there's no limit. You can carry whatever gun you want, as many as you want. Yeah. But yeah, it was cool. I mean, I'm going to continue to have a permit because it's you get the reciprocity with other states. So I can carry a lot of the country I can carry legally.
Because the Utah one specifically is what opens you up. A lot of guys here, if they get a CCW, like some of my family members who live in other counties, they've had CCWs for long time. My dad has my entire life. And if he gets the Utah one, then when he travels, it's like most of the country. If he's in, he can also carry there.
Yeah. So I will continue to have for that reason, but it's nice that, for people like my wife that don't necessarily want to go get a permit because they're not going to carry that, but if they could, because she works now, she hasn't worked most of our marriage. She's kind of gone back to, work just recently, and she just manages like a little cookie drink shop, but sometimes she's there by herself, and it's like, I would like her to, it's a hard thing to get her to do. She's not like anti-gun or anything. She's shot guns since we've been married, and she just, I don't know, it's never something she's like thought was necessary, you know what I mean? But
yeah, my wife loves the idea of me carrying, but I guarantee you she wouldn't be willing to herself.
Yeah, and she's the same way. She likes the idea I carry. She loves, especially when we go to certain places, she's like, I'm so glad you have that, but I'm like, you can have it too.
Right.
You know what I mean? And you don't have to carry it on your body. Women have, I think, easier time to do it because they can just put it in their purse. It's normal.
Right.
Guys carry around a purse that looks like, we have a man purse, the fanny pack.
Fanny pack though is
fanny pack is in style right now. But how long is that going to last? I mean, that can't stay forever.
True. Yeah.
Hopefully.
My dad has hung on to it through the off seasons of fanny packs not being cool. So
you get to a point where you don't care, right? He's just older and he's like, I don't care anymore. I don't care what people think, Yeah.
My dad, my entire life has had a fanny pack, and anytime he's carrying off body, that's where it is. And it's like, I've just accepted that, like, during all of the 90s and 2000s when fanny packs were really not in.
Yeah, they're worse.
It's just the way it was going.
Hey, nothing fancy. If you ever heard of him, I'm sure you have.
Oh, yeah.
He was a big fanny pack guy, when they weren't cool, they weren't in style. Now they are. And yeah, when I walk around this like place, this amusement park, that's the only time I really ever wear it for the most part, unless I go like we don't have beaches or anything, you know what I mean? But if I do take it with me to somewhere that does, I would probably, but I don't get weird looks. It's pretty normal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
I do.
To me,
if I'm hiking in like national forest, because I do a lot of hikes, I'm right below Angeles National Forest. There, it's legal to carry, the way I understand it. I'm not a lawyer, so hopefully people won't
assume legal to carry there. That's interesting.
Because you're in national forest land. So for like when I'm hiking, I'll carry it. I have a Hill People Gear chest bag. And for that, it's perfect for stuff like that. And when I'm hiking, it looks like I've just got more gear on, right? Like I've got a backpack and I've got a chest bag, and it could be binoculars or just where I keep some stuff. Like it doesn't look all that intimidating, which I love, because like even trail running and stuff, I can just cinch it down, keep it tight to my body. Yeah. That's nice. But around here, like if I go for a run around the neighborhood, I feel like I'll look weird wearing like a coyote brown like chest bag.
You would. Yeah.
But I see people just the other day, my wife and I were on a walk, and there was this group of guys that ran by. It's 3 kids. I say kids, they're probably in their early 20s. And 2 of them were wearing plate carriers for their run, which I assume was they're just like weighted vests or whatever, like a lot of people are using for CrossFit or whatever. But it was like these like camo plate carriers on these guys just running by. And she was like, what are they doing? I was like, I guess they're just adding weight, but I don't know. Apparently, maybe I could get away with running with a chest pack on.
You might, yeah. You might. Yeah, how does that work? So, like, you leave the forest or the national forest where you're hiking, and let's say you could be carrying, and you get to your vehicle. Like, do you have to just put it in your car and lock it up, kind of thing? Is that how it goes?
Yeah. So you'd have to travel. You'd have to be transporting the firearm in a locked container, separate from the ammunition, unloaded. And then you're fine, because that's the way you, like, if I was going to the range, I'd have to technically bring it the same way.
Oh, really?
Yeah. In California, if you're driving in the car, it's supposed to be locked and separate from the ammo. The way it's written, it actually just says it can't be touching the ammo. So like if you had the mag next to it in the locked container and the magazine was loaded, you might be okay if they're not touching, but I doubt a cop would see it that way. So typically, most people will just put the gun itself unloaded in a locked container, ammo separate from it somewhere else in the car, and then you should be fine. So yeah, it's just like if I park at the trailhead, then unlock the case, throw a mag in, rack around, put it in the chest bag, and then I'm ready to go.
Yeah, that's interesting. Same way in Oregon. Like Portland, Oregon is like really strict, but like other surrounding areas aren't. So
Yeah.
like if you go into the city of Portland, you're technically like, I remember we were traveling, like my wife's from that area, and we were up there for like a wedding, and I had my concealed carry school. We drove from Utah, went through Idaho, which is totally fine. And then
Right.
most of Oregon's actually okay too, but it's like when you get into Portland, you can't have it. You have to have like kind of like that stored a certain way. And it was like,
Yep.
am I really gonna get out of the car where as soon as I get in the city and like take everything out and put it in the city? That's
Yep.
ridiculous. I'm just whatever. I just left it. I was like, whatever.
I think my dad got in trouble one time driving over a dam because I forget what dam it was, but technically a dam is like federal property or something. Like there's this weird designation, and they got pulled over, and the guy, I think whoever it was, the officer or whatever, asked if there was a firearm in the car, and my dad had a passenger with him who was like, "Oh yeah, Bruce carries, but he has a CCW," and that was the wrong thing to say to that guy who otherwise wouldn't have pulled him out of the car. But I think they ended up just like getting scolded for it and had to like lock them in the vehicle, which is I don't know, potentially I guess you could be arrested for that. But I've always thought the rules like those are so stupid. Like if you go into downtown LA, same thing. You're not allowed to carry even with a permit. Just like I thought I had a permit in LA County, right? Like, shouldn't that be the idea? Is if I go into downtown LA where I'd want it most, that I should have it on me?
Well, the criminals are doing it and they don't have permits.
Exactly. It's like, I guess I'll just never go to downtown, which is the way I go about it. But
yeah, that would be irritating. Yeah, we're lucky. We have a lot of good laws here, so we don't have to worry about any of that kind of stuff. I mean, not a big deal, So. Yeah. And the constitutional thing, it wasn't a big deal to me because I already have a permit, but it is to a lot of people.
Great to see, though. Yeah,
a lot of states
moved to Utah a few years ago.
Oh, really?
But now
that's beautiful.
Yeah, if I could have gotten my wife away from LA, we would have. But we're it seems like
we're in LA. Where in LA County do you live?
So I'm in Pasadena area.
Okay.
So it's like northwest of downtown, right up against the like Angeles National Forest. There's like Mount Wilson, the whole big mountain range right up here. So
yeah, okay.
That's the only way that I stay sane.
My company that I work for was their corporate offices in Santa Monica. So I've been out there a lot recently. Not since COVID, but pre-COVID out there quite a bit, on the beach area over there, which is nice. I mean, California is beautiful. There's
not as nice at the moment with how many homeless people are in Venice and Santa Monica. But
my gosh, there was a ton like couple of years ago when I guess it's been a couple of years now, hasn't it? I mean, it's been like over a year since COVID. So over last time I was there, I just couldn't believe the amount of homeless people. I was like, this is nuts. Like, I thought this was like a nice area, it's just full of homeless
the crazy
people.
thing is it's still expensive if you're there paying to be expensive there. But if you're living in a tent, then it's free. So
a lot of Californians are moving to Utah and Texas and a lot of other states. And what sucks for us is it's killing our housing market right now.
Yeah,
our housing market's getting really expensive. Not as expensive as California, but it's not. It's on the way there, and that's terrifying as a homeowner because you're like, we were just looking to buy a new home, and I was like, this is crazy how much houses are selling for, and we had put 6 offers in on homes, and we lost all but one. We actually kind of backed out of the one we did win, I guess you'd say, but a lot of them were cash offers, and they were people from California moving in, selling their homes in California for tons of money, coming to Utah and buying a really nice house for cash.
You get so much more out there.
Yeah. But it was frustrating as a local buyer because I'm like, wait, I don't have the equity that you have to be dropping $500,000 on a freaking house cash. Like, what the heck? It was crazy. So we kind of backed out of that for now. We're just like, we're going to see what happens with the market, and hopefully it starts to dip down, but it might not. They're projecting that Utah is going to get pretty like California,
Yeah. I'm hoping that enough people leave here that it actually gets pretty nice here and that cost comes down. So you can take
hope that. Yeah, we don't want them though. We don't want those liberals over here. No offense if you're liberal. But,
none taken.
You know what I mean? We don't want them. I mean, we don't want them, but there's a lot of good people. I'm not biased like that, but I wish they would stay there because they're coming in droves. Texas feels the same way. I know a lot of them are going to Texas, and they're like, it's such a different place there too. The funny thing is when people do move, they kind of keep their politics, so to speak, with them, and they bring it to this new place. And it's like,
why don't you leave what you tried to escape from?
Yeah. What do you do? Don't try to come to Utah and be super liberal when we're a very conservative state? That doesn't make any sense. Like, why did you leave California? I didn't like call it political climate. It's like, well, then don't bring it here with you. Like,
you had a monopoly on the political climate over there, and you're trying to come to a place where it's less what you left from. Yeah, that doesn't.
Yeah, no, it doesn't make sense.
I've never understood that type of mentality where it's like, we're going to escape this and we're going to bring it with us wherever we go. It's not really what escape means.
Yeah, you're seeing a lot in Texas and the Austin area, especially. It's gotten pretty crazy down there. So, yeah, I saw some video somebody made that it was some guy from California coming to Texas, and it was the same guy in the video, but like one was the California guy, one was the Texas guy, and it was really funny, like, because it was talking about that exact thing. Like, wait, you moved here to get away from that, but you're trying to bring it here? Like, we don't do that kind of stuff in Texas, It's just funny. Pretty funny. Well, you said you keep going as long as you. I mean, I've seen some of your podcasts go like 4 hours.
Yeah,
that's almost more when I went 4 hours, dude. That was nuts.
I'm gravy to keep going, but if you got to end, then I can respect that as well.
I'm good. I'm good for the time being. I think I'm good for now. So if you want to keep going, I'm good.
You give me a wink when it's time. All right.
Yeah, I'll give you a really, really hard, like totally obvious one. Gotcha. You want to talk more about knives? We haven't talked a lot about knives, actually. A little bit. Kind of went on a gun conversation, but you.
No, you go ahead.
I was just gonna say recent things that I got in. I got the drift in today. I can see what the hype is about. I really can. I need to get my action dialed in. It's a little stiff out of the box. Did it break in nicely for you? Did you have to disassemble it or?
So mine is definitely not drop shutty, but neither was the Waypoint, so I wasn't expecting it to be either. But it's smooth, and on deployment, it's poppy. Like I've never had an issue with it deploying all the way, either for middle finger flick or for thumb flick. It just really it fires pretty hard, like the detent is dialed. But yeah, there's resistance the whole way down. It's just smooth resistance. The CRK boys would love it.
Yeah, they would. They would. It does feel like that kind of action. It really does. That's a good comparison. I was curious if it just was stiff or mine's pretty much the same way. Like it really pops out on deployment. Both ways.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a shaker. But
yeah. And that's your first experience with Vanex, right?
It is, yes. Yeah. I'm pretty excited. I was hoping that Spyderco might bring something on Vanex. So I was kind of holding off for a while, but it doesn't seem like they're going to. So maybe they are. Maybe they're going to finally make a Paramilitary 2 or something in Vanex, but like a sprint run that'll,
I'd be willing to bet if they're going to do it, I think the first application you'll see it in will be like a mule team, their fixed blade mule series, because that's usually how they'll like try a new steel. But I think from some like not necessarily inside, but like within the Spyderco world, conversations that have happened that have included people from Spyderco, it has sounded like they're aware of it. They're interested at least in trying it, or maybe they've started just internally doing their own testing on it. But they don't like haphazardly bring out steels either. Even though they bring out a ton of new steels, they always do a lot of internal like testing and vetting and figuring that stuff out. So I wouldn't be surprised if Eric Glesser has something in Vanex in his pocket that they've made that he's like putting through its paces. But it'll probably be a little while before they bring something to market in it.
Eric's a super nice guy. I met him at the USN show a couple of years ago, chatted with him for a while. He's super cool.
Yeah,
he's a knife guy. Like you can tell
through and through.
Yeah.
When I was talking to Thomas, it was awesome because he had just recently, he and Jason had done their like interview with him in the Millie Club. And I was trying to express to Thomas like how much I think it's cool that Eric is the type of guy he is, because no other knife company has an Eric Glesser, like not at that size, at least. Like there's a lot of independent makers who you really know who the maker is and you like see stuff from them. But Spyderco is the only company of that caliber where it's like people know who Sal is and now who Eric is, and they're familiar with their designs. They're designing for the knife company and they're running it. And like, he seems like a really chill dude who you would just like talk to at a barbecue, like he's a normal guy who's not pretentious, and just like, you can tell he's actually into the knives and it's like his passion, which is, it's cool to see.
It is. And it makes you, I've always been fan of Spyderco. It makes you a bigger fan. Like after chatting with him, I just became a little bit more of a bigger fan of Spyderco. And I don't have a ton of Spyderco. I have like 2, I think. I have a pair of 3 and a Spidey Chef, but I've owned like probably 100 Spydercos, in my day. And it's just one of those companies that because of like guys like him, it's like, okay, I'm a big fan of it. I'll support him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That guy going off on your comments, calling him Spidey junk and spelling it wrong. I couldn't let that go. I was like, nah, bro.
I love that.
At least like, I'm like, what does SC stand for? Are you making Spyderco into 2 words?
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm like,
Spyderco.
No.
And it's spider with an I, okay? So there's an interesting segue, I guess, and we'll come back to knives, I promise. But you have way more subscribers than I do on YouTube. And I've noticed that as my channel has gotten bigger, the frequency has gotten a little bit more and more. I kind of expected it to be even greater, that I'd get like weird troll comments. I still am very fortunate in the sense that like most comments that I get are positive, and then there's a decent chunk that are just like, I'd say neutral. Like they're not being weird or offensive. They're just saying something that like I find kind of dumb. And then there's like a small percentage of people who are like, they're upset for some reason, like there's going to be trolls. And I set out from the very beginning when I decided to make a channel, it was like, I'd already come to the conclusion that I wouldn't give that any kind of power over my own emotional state or let it be anything bigger than it needs to be. And so I just find it funny the bulk of the time. And I like to respond back and have fun with it. And like, if you watch my Instagram stories, every now and then I share that when I think it's especially funny. But
yeah,
as your channel has gotten bigger and bigger and your subscriber count has increased and it's reached a bigger audience, maybe, have you found that you get more trolls, or has it stayed pretty like, because your audience is pretty niche? Do you not encounter that?
I do encounter it, but I don't think a ton. No, for the most part, I'm just trying to think of a recent video I did. So that Hellcat video I did recently, that's pulled some out of the woodworks, because and it will with guns. I think it's worse than guns, dude. Probably. If you go to gun channels, that's all they do. The comments in there, ooh, like it's crazy. So, I would say, I don't think it's gotten any worse than it ever was. I think there's just always going to be those people, and when you have a differing opinion than some fanboy of Chris Reeve Nice, which I like Chris Reeve Nice a lot, but I understand that some people, I don't even actually own one right now. Yeah, and I've had tons of them, but like you're always gonna have those guys that spout
and certain subjects, if you're talking about the triad lock, or if you're talking about Chris Reeve, or in this case the Norseman, or like certain things that there is like a cult following of, maybe. Strider knives, if you get a fact wrong about the Strider in the video, there will be people real mad.
Yeah, they're funny, those guys.
No,
I don't think it's gotten any worse as my channel's gotten bigger. I just think it's something you encounter regardless. You're at a decent, what are you, like 8,000 or something like that now?
I just passed 6 a week ago.
6, okay. So you're growing fast. Your growth is fast though. Like that's something that you should hang your hat on, because it took me a while. I think I kind of peaked. Do you know what I mean? Like I was growing pretty steadily. And I don't remember where I peaked at. And then it just has been a snail pace since then. And I don't know if that's normal, if that's what happens. But you're a good enough sized channel. You're gonna get those trolls for sure. They don't usually like. You get a little bit more, traffic on YouTube, and searches and stuff like that. That's really when you start getting them coming out of the woodworks, and I'm like you, I do not usually get into it with them,
Right.
I really don't.
Oh, I love to get into it with them. I have so much fun doing it.
I should say emotionally, like it doesn't make them mad. I will get into it with them for sure, but like you said, as a source of entertainment. But I've never really gotten mad, but sometimes like people are blatantly like just belligerent, in their comments, and I just delete them. I think that's like the best power. I shouldn't say power, but it's a feature that we have as channel creators, like that. What I'll usually do is I'll reply to them and then block their block them from my channel. They can't respond. It's the most satisfying thing in the world. It's like, I got the last word in, sucker. You know what I mean? And that's childish, but like sometimes when they get like that, I'm like, you know what? Block. Like, just remove you from my channel. I don't care if you subscribe to me. I don't care if you watch. I'm not here to make money off YouTube. You know, it's a hobby. It's, you know, it's extra spending money for gear that you want to buy. But like, I'm not going to put up with that crap. So I usually just remove them and I delete so many comments. I don't know if you do that or not. Some people like don't like that. Like, don't delete comments. Like, if it has nothing to do with the conversation or in any way that's beneficial, I'm going to just delete it because it's stupid. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
I don't know. That's how I am. I don't know. And maybe that helps keep the trolls away. I don't know.
Sure. Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I've tried from the beginning, and I've talked about this before, but like, I always wanted to create an expectation in my comment section that if you respond to my video in a way that I find idiotic or that's like attacking me or whatever, then it's fair game for me to also, I have rules for myself. I won't call names. I won't say bad words, like, but I'll point out why that person is incorrect. If they're coming to my comment section, rebuttaling my video or whatever it is, if it has nothing to do with the video and it's just like, your beard looks gross, then like, I don't know. Usually I'll respond by laughing because I find that hilarious. Like, and maybe by me laughing at it, they realize when they see that this guy who they just tried to diss is laughing at what a douche they just were in my comments. They realize, oh, I was being a douche. Like, why did I say that? And I have had a number of people, not a ton, but a handful of people who've specifically messaged me, sometimes like months later after leaving a nasty comment and then me going back and forth with them and calling them out for being an idiot. I've had people apologize like, hey, I was in a bad space when I did that. Like, it wasn't cool of me. And it's like, that's awesome of you to apologize. But I just like to create this, like, this culture in my comment section where there's consequences for being a dick, because I think it's fair. If you're a dick, I can be a dick back because I didn't start it. I made a video sharing my opinions about an object on YouTube for this weird niche of people that follow me and whoever else wants to watch it, frankly. But like, if you want to respond to that in some weird personal diss, like, I don't know. Or if you just disagree with me and don't have any reason for doing so, you're just calling me wrong, then like, back it up, bro. Let's have a conversation. Like, that's what a comment section should be for, in theory, right? If you think I'm wrong, say how I'm wrong, and then I can respond and we can have a conversation about it. But yeah, I don't know. Some people like Kyle from DTOM Knives and Gear, sometimes I give him crap because like, he's just so nice to everybody who's mean to him. And I'm like, no, that person was mean to you. Like, you don't have to be as mean as they were, but be mean enough so that they realize, maybe they didn't realize it while they were typing it, how like ignorant and rude it sounded, but they were a dick to you. So point it out and have fun while doing it. Respond in a funny, snarky way, and then post it on your stories. And everyone laughs at that person, and it's great. And then all the people who see that I do that, if they ever find themselves in my comment section, they know if they're a dick, they might also end up in my stories on Instagram where everyone's going to laugh at them. And it's like, it just creates this cycle where, for me, like, my comment section I find is pretty positive and fun. And when it's not positive, it becomes funny. And that works for me. I don't know if that'll work forever. There will probably come a time where I won't be able to get to all the comments, hopefully, if I grow enough.
If you get big enough. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm with you. I think that's a good idea, and that's a good way to go about it, for sure. I think it's funny when you post some of your videos. That's why I comment on them, because I'm like, in your stories, I'm like, oh my gosh. It's funny to see other people's comments, because I'll watch your videos and I don't always sit and spend time in a run comment section. I'll maybe
read other people's comment section.
It's like, it's funny to see that, because I'm like, oh, that's I've never experienced a guy like that before. Like, you know what I mean? But I'm sure I have. I've been doing it long enough that I probably just brushed off. And
you deleted it and forgot. Yeah.
You deleted it and see it, dude. Like, I don't have time for this.
I've definitely deleted some, by the way. I'm not one of those like never delete a comment guys. If somebody posts something that's just like purely like grossly mean and like full of vulgarity for no reason, it doesn't have to do with what I said in the video or whatever, and it's like, that's just getting deleted. And I delete a ton of spam comments every day too. But
what is up with that lately? It's like the first comment a lot of times on my video is some link to some porn site or something.
It's just like vom dot blah blah blah. Yeah, and it has like a timestamp, and it's like,
I'm like, remove. Like, what are you doing? Like, how are you even finding my videos to do this? Like, you're a
Or lately,
subscriber,
have you been getting the ones where it's like, don't know if anyone gives a crap, but I just figured out how to hack my girlfriend's Instagram account, blah, blah, blah. Just Google such and such. There's not even a link for you to click on. And then another account will
Yeah,
comment
we'll
replying to
respond.
theirs
It
of like,
works.
oh
Yeah.
my gosh, it took like 10 or 15 minutes, but it totally worked. And it's like,
Yeah.
there's no links here for people to click. What is this? You
What is
think
the point of this? Like,
how are you winning? I don't
yeah,
get it.
I got that on a recent video and I was like, what? Like, what is this? Why is this on here? Like, this is so stupid. Yeah. No, I got called a midget the other day. And I thought,
does the person even know how tall you are?
No, he doesn't know. Oh, I didn't show myself on the video. I just had it was the Hellcat video, and I just had it on there. And he's like, no, he said, what are you, a midget? Yeah, these guns are, like too big for you. And I was like, you completely are kidding me. Like, did you watch the whole video? Like, I showed you the gun I carry on a basis, which is way bigger.
Right.
And I'm like, it's not too small, too big for me to carry, bro. You missed the whole context of the video. Like, and that's what's frustrating sometimes is people watch like 2 minutes and then they make a comment.
Yeah.
And I almost want to be like, if you're going to comment, I welcome it, but wait till you've watched the whole thing. Because how many times have you done? I've done that on videos where I will go back and be like, oop, I didn't watch the whole thing. And you answered you said this later and I feel like an idiot now. So I'll delete it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I think people would take the time to watch the video and then comment at the end when they've done that. Cause you're probably going to cover that, it's just, it saves so much time, but most of the time I don't get derogatory things said about. I was like, oh yeah, that's interesting. Right. Yeah, like no idea who I am. Like I didn't show myself on video. I'm like an average male, like height wise. You know what I mean? I'm like, yeah, nope, not a midget.
That guy definitely. He carries a deagle appendix in waistband. That's how. Yeah. That's his EDC.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So one thing that I sometimes I get, it's polarizing. Like sometimes I get flack for making these kinds of statements, and other times people are like, I totally agree. Sometimes I'll say to people who are being critical of me that I don't think they should necessarily be able to be critical of people making videos unless they've made some of their own. Obviously, that's not totally true. Like there are things you can be critical of without doing it that are fair observations to make about somebody else doing an activity, right? Like, yeah. But in general, when people get really critical of like my video style, and they're like, show the knife more. This should be tabletop. Like, blah, blah, blah. Like, we don't want to see your face. We want to see the knife. Like, I get a lot of that. And it used to be a lot more. Now I think people have accepted that that's not who I am as a channel. But one of my common retorts has always been like, why don't you use the email account that you have and the phone that's in your hand and make your own YouTube channel and make the videos you'd like to watch instead of telling me how to do it on mine? Do you ever find that you get like that similar frustration where it's people who clearly have never made a YouTube video and their critique isn't even about something you said in it. It's about like how you filmed it or something.
Yep. No, I think we were chatting about that on Instagram a little bit. I do. And I love that response because I've said the exact same thing. I'm like, well, then why don't you go make your own channel and we'll all come and comment on it and see how well you do. Like, come on, like, put your money. And I've literally said, put your money where your mouth is to people before. Like, if you're going to be this critical of people that do this as a hobby, I'm not a professional videographer. I'm not, I mean, like, I don't, I've never claimed to have like great video quality and you know what I mean? Like I shoot my stuff on iPhones. Like to me, it wasn't worth the investment of all the equipment and all that stuff. You know what I mean? And for those that do it, great. You know what I mean? And there's some amazing knife channels out there that have really good quality. And I'm not talking about the Fuller Fanatic. He does have great quality, but
we can go there too if you want to.
That's the whole conversation in itself. But like, I'm thinking, what's that guy's channel? It's best damn EDC or something like that. Yeah, Taylor Martin. Huge. He's got a big channel and his quality is fantastic. And I'm like, man, that would be awesome to do that. But I'm like, I don't have the energy, don't want to put the money into it. YouTube will never make you any money, like real money. So it's like, to me, it wasn't, the return on investment just wasn't there, and I'm like, I'll just continue to do what I'm doing and have it be a hobby. And I think I enjoy it that way, and it's not to say I couldn't improve. I know I can. Like, you're not going to be the first person to tell me my, video quality is not the best, or like, my lighting's not great, or my audio quality. I'm like, I try to improve on those things because, you do have a subscriber that's to follow you and you want to go. I don't want to put out crap content, but like at the same time, I'm not going to like invest a lot of money and equipment to do so. So it's like I got to make work with what I have. My iPhone 12 shoots 4K, great. I can shoot 4K quality video, right?
Yeah.
You know, and I get it all the time. Especially more on gun videos and nice. Nice don't usually have that problem because I do the tabletop most of the time. Sometimes I'll do the mix. I've been starting to do that a little bit more just to mix it up. But gun stuff sometimes, man, people are super. And I'm like, dude, I'm not freaking Mr. Guns and Gear, and I'm not these huge channels that have like hundreds of thousands of subs that can go out and buy super expensive equipment. Like you're
why
not
aren't
going to
your
get that.
videos as good as Garantham? Come on.
Exact Grantham. That was the other one I was trying to remember.
He's got like a whole team behind him now, and
he's
the
got an
studio
editing
space.
team. Yeah, like it's like that's awesome that he's like, and I watch his channel too. You know, it's good. Yeah, but it's like you're never gonna get that here. and I'm not gonna pretend like that I'm trying to do that. Like I'm just not.
I think there's a different value too, though. Like I just said, I follow Grantham both on Instagram and on YouTube, and I thoroughly enjoy his videos. And there's like a certain cinematic quality to them. There's a humor to them that I enjoy, and like I like the guy too. Like I think he's cool. The whole thing is very nice. But if I watch him review a gun versus watching you review a gun, I feel it's like a totally different expectation and a totally different like end result, right? Like I'm looking for different entertainment value out of his video, and I'm almost even listening less to the things he has to say about the gun because he's a different type of person than me with how many rounds he's sending down range, his background and experience and all that. Whereas like if I watch one of your gun reviews, like I just watched the one, but the Hellcat versus the SIG versus like that was great for me because that I found interesting. It was info in a way that I could relate to it, where it was like, this was before you and I, this is the first time we've talked with words, not DMing a little bit. Like, I didn't know you as I watched your videos, but I felt like hearing kind of from a friend, whereas like watching a guy like Grantham or Nothing Fancy, like any of these giant channels or Suture, like there's all these channels. It doesn't feel like you're getting info from a buddy, whereas channels like you who are like, I'm shooting this on my iPhone of the gear that I'm passionate about, and like being open, honest about your experiences and how you came to these conclusions, that just, it seems so much more relatable to me. And same thing with knife channels. Like, it's different to watch a Blade HQ video about a knife, which is super curated and there's a whole marketing team there and all that, versus Lefty EDC. Like Lefty EDC is going to look like an idiot the whole time and love it. And I love him for it. And it's like, and I get different information and I don't expect the same things from the two. And it's like people who expect every person who's making content on YouTube to be trying to be the same thing is like, it's not why YouTube even exists. The point is that there's like hobbyists and guys who just like, you have this thing already, you want to make a video about it to contribute because you have unique experience with it. That's totally fine.
Yeah, and I agree. It's easier to relate to, I think, smaller channels a lot of times. You know what I mean? Like even when and I'm pretty knowledgeable, I fill in guns and stuff, and when I watch some of those videos, and I'm like, this is more of an advertisement and entertainment than it is an actual like experience, like real world experience. You know?
And some of those guys can be very critical, which is good. I think Grantham is actually a pretty good example of like
he does not beat around the bush.
Very objective. But yeah, a lot of them are very that it's an ad placement, and they're probably getting paid to do it.
Yeah, they're getting paid, and they're getting the gun for free, and and that's fine. Like sometimes I get stuff sent to me, and I usually tell people, hey, I got this sent to me, but I always tell companies like, if you're gonna send me a product, you be prepared that I may not like it, and I'm gonna be honest. Like, and if you don't want that, don't come back to my channel and ask for me to do it again, because
you're sending it to a reviewer, not to a hype guy or an advertiser.
Here's a great example. Olight flashlights.
Yeah.
Olight flashlights are like, excuse my language, the whore of the freaking, of YouTube. Like every channel, every time they have a sale, and they would send out and they've tried, and I said, sure, I'll do a video, but I'm not going to do your stupid marketing thing. I'm not going to like, post it at exactly that same time. And I'll do an honest review of your product for sure if you want me to, but I'm not going to like, sling it out there like I'm selling it for you. Like, I'm not going to do that. and they will like stop sending me stuff for a while, and then a new person will call me or email me, hey, would you like to review? I'm just like, how many people work there that
do
deal
this
with
job.
YouTube people? Like, it's like, wait, I've done this for you guys like 10 plus times, and it always trickles off where they stop sending me stuff for a while, then they start doing it again, and I'm like, because I'm not meeting their quotas and they're, and I'm like, that's never gonna be me. Like, never gonna do that, because I just, first of all, like, I don't think there's anything wrong with channels to do that at all. I'm not saying that, but like, at the same time, it's just not my personality. And I'm also like on my own schedule. Like, I just upload when I can.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I work full time and I work remote at home. And sometimes I have lighter work days and sometimes I have heavier work days. And it's like, if I have time, I'll do something. If I don't, might go a few days. I might record all my videos in one day on Sunday because I have time. You know what I mean? Like, I can't be meeting some deadline like it's my job. Like, no, this is my job. You guys don't pay well enough for me to be doing that. So, and I'm not trashing on their lights or anything like that. They're fine. Right. They're good quality, but it's just, you know what I mean? Flashlight companies are the worst at that. Can you imagine if knife companies did that? Like, if like Spyderco was like going out to all of us channels, like, hey, we want to do this sale on this knife and we want to send one to you. I'd be like, sweet, free Spyderco, right? But it would take away from the value, though, I think, of their company, and that's why they don't do it. You know what I mean? Right. I think a lot of knife companies don't give out free samples unless they're like Kaiser and a lot of the Chinese companies have done that. We Knives, stuff like that. They'll give out samples and stuff, but like, they haven't gone obnoxious about it like, flashlight companies have. It's not just Olight, it's tons. I get it my Facebook Messenger, because I have a Facebook channel page for my YouTube channel that I like literally do nothing on, because I just don't care. And I do most of my stuff on YouTube and Instagram, obviously. And I'll get messages all the time. Would you like to review our new flashlight? And I'm like, I have reviewed like 20 of your lights. Like, I'm done. Don't need to review any more of your lights. Like, I don't
even need any more of them. I've got lights
I have
for everything.
Flashlights coming out of my ears. Like, I don't even. I carry one every day, and it's a Surefire. Right. And it's like, I paid money for it. Like, I don't even carry what you guys send me. But I just hope knife companies don't get like that, And I think some channels out there, the bigger ones, are getting a lot of free products sent to them, and that's fine. Good for them. They're that big. They're getting that product. You just hope that it doesn't skew their review. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I mean,
I've taken in free knives for sure. Some of them quite nice. And it's like, for me, I always have to have that conversation before it gets sent to me, whether it's a company or a small maker, where it's like, if you're going to send this to me, understand that it's coming to me as a reviewer. And I probably wouldn't even be saying yes to bringing it in if I wasn't interested in it and didn't think it was nice, because otherwise I just won't take the time, right? Like, I have too many other things to be reviewing that I want to review, that if I'm not interested in the thing, then like, I won't even say yes to it. But bear in mind, even though I'm interested in it, I think it's cool and you seem nice, like, I'm going to be as objective as I can about the review, and I need to be able to tell people I did get this for free. That's important to me, so they know. But like, I try to be as objective as I can. Can I remove all bias? Probably not, logically speaking, but like, I'll do my best. And if I see a flaw, I'll call it out. And I'll probably also say thank you in the video that they gave me that thing. Like, that's how it's going to be for me. And I think as long as you're transparent about it, that can work. And I know there are a couple of knife companies who, like, they've got a list of reviewers who everything new that they have that comes out, like Benchmade, will send all their new stuff. That's like what they're trying to push to their list of people. And I have friends who do that, and I think they still do a good job of reviewing their knives. I don't think it's wrong of Benchmade to do that, because they're just intelligent enough to see that, like, if we send it to this list of 5 or 10 people, we're reaching another 100,000 people that aren't going to watch our YouTube video about it. Like, they have their own audiences. It's a real way to get exposure on a product, and I think that's fine. But yeah, I think the importance is like in the honesty, both as a reviewer saying, hey, I did get this for free, and then also saying to the company, hey, you're sending this to a reviewer, not to an advertising company, not to like, what I do is I review. So I'm going to use my typical review process. I'm going to call what I think is good, and what I think is bad. These are the things that I think. I'm going to state them as opinion, but I'm going to say them. You can take that as feedback. If there's something bad, you could be mad about it. That's up to you. But like, that's my process, you
Are
know?
you're not part of our pass around group, are you? The Apex pass around? Are you part of that?
No. So
I know Kyle and Kevin are, but
I've been invited to it, and I've been invited to a number of pass arounds, and I've never taken a pass around knife. I, I just personally, I'm not interested in it. I don't want to sound pretentious or like I'm above it,
no.
but I think a lot of like, I think there can be a cycle where there's a group of channels who have all the same followers as one another, and they all review the same knives on a cycle because they're all taking them from the same pass around. And I
Yeah.
never wanted to be part of that loop. And so if there's something in a pass around that I find really exciting, I'll either reach out to the company and see if I can get one, or I'll buy one and then I'll review it. And if I don't love it, I'll sell it. And like, to
Yeah.
me, I just rather have the autonomy to like do it on my own terms.
Yeah.
And I don't, there's definitely some really cool knives that go around and pass arounds and like would be cool to check out. But to me, it's just like, I'd rather not, I just want to be as autonomous as a channel as I can be, I guess.
Yeah, and I'm part of it. I don't participate a lot though. Like they will put up knives channels on Slack is what we use, and
Mhm.
most of the time I don't sign up. Every once in a while, I will, but like the one thing that I don't like about it is that you can't use the knives most of the time.
Yeah. See, that's
And for me, it's like
a non-starter for me.
I can't really give and I've gotten, I won't say names or anything, but some conversations back and forth, like the manufacturer doesn't want you to do that. They don't want you to use the knife. I'm like,
Then
I
that's
was
not a
literally
review.
I was cutting things with it. Like, what do they want me to do with this knife? Like, it's a cutting tool. How
Right.
dare I cut some cardboard or some, carve some
You can
wood,
review this
like,
firearm, but you can't shoot it.
yeah. I'm just like, I don't think I can do this anymore. Like, if this is really how it's going to be, like, if you guys are going to get like on my case about it, like, to me, it's hard. I have a hard time with that. And I get a lot of I don't get feedback, but I hear a lot of feedback on other people's channels that like don't really use the knife. So I'm like, how are you giving a review on that knife if you haven't actually physically put it in your hand and cut things with it? And I'm not talking like computer paper. You know what I mean? I'm like,
Right.
really, and you don't have to abuse the heck out of it. I'm not going to do, my mini Adamas video was a little over the top more than I normally do, but it was fun. And the knife did great. And it's got a lot of use. And it's like, that was real use though. I mean, a little maybe abuse more than use, but you know
Right.
what I mean? Like it, a lot of guys will review knives and they don't even like cut anything with them. And I'm like, I can't, to me that I don't value that really,
Yeah.
like I
I
don't,
noticed for a while I saw a pattern of certain channels. I don't notice it nearly as much anymore, but like I would see them do an unboxing as a knife like came out, right? Like they'd get it on a drop. And so like I know they didn't get an early copy. They bought it on the drop, like they said, they unboxed it. And then like within 24 hours, there would be a full review. And in that full
yeah,
review, they'd be talking about performance. And it was like, stop. I don't believe you. I'm out. Like
there's
you
no way I did anything with this
you
in that
carried it in
24 hour
one
period.
pair of pants and like
Yeah,
maybe you cut some cardboard with it. And like I don't know, I just think those things take time. And
they do.
I I don't hate people for doing it. Like I just, to
No.
me, I have to, I do an unboxing. I do a first impressions, which is like I've started to use it. This is what I'm finding so far. And sometimes I find out a lot more because then when it's been at least a week and I've used it enough to feel comfortable talking about it, so that if anybody called me out and was like, well, I don't think you really did, it'd be like, no, I actually definitely did. And I could say that with confidence without lying. Then I'll do my full review. Like,
Yeah.
otherwise I'd feel bad about it. I wouldn't be willing to shoot the review unless I had that much experience. And in the cases where it's been a loaner I can't really use, as soon as I jump into the review, I'm like, look, this is more of like a deeper impressions. This isn't a review.
Or an overview, or you know
Yeah.
what I mean, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, yeah,
But this is
yeah.
not a use review. Like it's just not.
Yeah, I try to do similar. I don't always do the three, first impressions. I usually do like an unboxing or a first impression video, then I do a final. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
in between that, and I've said it many many times, and sometimes I put footage of me using it, and sometimes I don't. And it's like I don't feel like I need to show it every time because I do the same process every time. I
Right.
cut certain things that I cut a knife. I use a knife for. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
I
And
cut a lot of things in a way that's not convenient to get the camera out and film too. It's like
exactly. Yeah. I
I'm
like,
opening something for my kid. I don't
yeah.
want to like, no, we're not getting the
Yeah.
camera
I
for
mean,
that.
does everyone expect us to have like a GoPro on our shoulder all the time? So you're like, every time you're out the recycling bin cutting cardboard, you're like, I'm filming this, you know. And sometimes
Yeah.
I do, and I'll grab my phone and put it up there, and when I think about it or I have time, but like at the same time, like I've spent a lot of times in some steel testing videos I've done on Spyderco. I did all like Spyderco tools, or all the Para 3 tool steels essentially.
Mm.
I spent a lot of time on those, and like a lot of cutting and it just, they don't do great on views. And I'm like, I'm not going to spend this time in anymore to do that. You know, I'm still going to do those things behind the scenes, but I'm not going to put them in the video because it just doesn't seem to be like, you know, something that people are looking for. But then I did like the Damas video, and people were like, oh, I love seeing this kind of stuff in videos. And I'm like, where were you on this other video? You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
it's sporadic. So, you know, yeah, but the same with, back to the pass around conversation and those channels. I'm not calling out any channels. Like I'm, you know, friends with most of these guys in the community. So, but it's like, that's one thing I have a hard time with that pass around group. It's like, you can't usually use the knives, you know, very minor use. And I'm like, why are these companies sending us products to like not critique and use? You know what I mean? There was one designer in there, I can't remember who, I can't think of the name, but I gave a kind of a pretty honest review on his knife, and he actually reached out to me and he's like, I really appreciate that. Like, you know, and it was part of our pass around group, and it was one we weren't supposed to use as hard as I did, but I did it anyway, just because whatever. And he was like, I really appreciate that. I'm going to work on that, you know, in my next design, my next update of this knife, because no one's really told me that. And I'm like, so we're not doing designers and companies any favors by not actually being honest in our reviews, like, you know, like you're talking about, and actually using the products and critiquing them. Like, we're not doing them any favors. Like, and they may not care. They're like, we don't care. We're gonna sell, you know, tons of these knives regardless of this guy's opinion. But there is some makers out there.
If you're surrounded by just yes men too, and everyone's just like, this is great, this is great, this is great, then people on the actual market, when they get it, could be supremely disappointed, and you could face a problem with all these reviewers said it was really nice, and then someone actually gets one and it's not really nice, right? That could be a problem. But also long term, like if they're not getting genuine feedback from these people who they're sending it to, who would make most sense to get feedback from, who are like, not to like toot our horns, right? But we hold a ton of knives and use a ton of knives and carry a ton of knives. And so like, I feel like you get relatively discerning after a while. Some things are preference, but other things are just like kind of objectively good or bad. Like if a blade grind is way too thick and not slicey enough to cut cardboard, you've made an EDC knife, then like you should probably revise that blade grind and get it a little thinner, and people will like it better and the knife will sell better. And like those things are like factually a little more clear, I think. And so, yeah, it just, if you only have people who are just like, this is great, my stamp of approval, because they sent it and I love them, like, this is so nice, like people are going to stop liking your products after a certain amount of time, because they'll realize all the reviewers are just saying nice things. And it's like, if you look up an Olight video and everyone's just saying this is the greatest light ever because they got it sent to them for free and they're only supposed to say nice things, then like after you get a few Olights, all of a sudden you might realize like, man, these lights actually aren't like that amazing. Like they're fine maybe, but that seems like a lot of marketing, you know?
Yeah. And there's a fine line between marketing and, you know, product reviews, I think, you know what I mean? And look at the Vero, where's my camera? This is the Synapse, the Gen 2. The pocket clip on this, like, it has a little bit of a hot spot for me and a lot of people, how it kind of bends up like that. And I made a comment on the Facebook group about it. But before I did that, I noticed that he's already revising the design based on feedback, right?
Yeah.
And I love that. I'm like, dude, this is why I'm a fan of his knives, because he listens to his fans and says, okay, well, because for Joseph, he may not even feel that in his hand. You know, ergonomics
I'm confident
of a knife,
he doesn't, because I've talked to him about it before.
Yeah. So to him, he's like, I don't know what you're talking about, but there's enough people that, because, you know, anatomically we all have different hands. Like, you know, it's not going to be the same for you and I. We might have different size hands, and we have, you know, palms or whatever. Like there's things. And like for me, I love the Synapse and I use it, and I'm not going to sell it or anything, but I'm excited that he's bringing out a revised clip. Then we're going to be able to buy them and to possibly improve that. To me, that's from feedback from people like us, or Facebook group people or whatever. He's listening to that and he's making that change, and I'm like, that will win people over as a fan. And obviously Vero has a lot of fanboys, right now, as we've the drops are insane. But like, it's cool to see that, but if the companies don't, back to your point, like if we aren't honest with that and say, call it out, I'm going to fully call that out in my review of this knife. It has a hotspot from the clip. That's my one negative thing about this knife. Honestly, one negative thing, big deal. But like, it could be a turnoff to someone, and it might cause them to not to buy that knife, right?
Yep.
But I'm also going to mention, but guess what? The maker is revising his design of this pocket clip using all of his knives to make it so it doesn't have that, hotspot for a lot of people. And it's because because people are giving their honest opinion, their honest reviews. So if you're not doing that, like ZT knives used to have a pass around back in the day that I was part of, but it was a pretty tight knit pass around. It wasn't a lot of channels involved. It was through the USN. Are you familiar with USN at all? I've said that a few times. I don't know if you're usual suspects.
I haven't ever been to the gathering, and I'm not. You have to be a member of the USN, right? Is it kind of like?
Yeah.
I'm not a member. I should be, but I'm not.
Not really. There's not much going on there. There hasn't been for years. I'm a member, but I never go on the forum.
Gotcha.
But
I've heard the gathering is a great show, and I'd like to go
to it. You totally should if you can, especially because it's pretty decently close to you. You know what I mean? It's in Vegas.
Yeah, Vegas is 3.5 hours. It's not bad at all.
Yeah, exactly. But there was a forum on the USN that Kershaw ZT had, and the main guy Thomas was like part of that, right? And he started a pass around for a few channels, and he would send us the new models and stuff. It was great. And I think this is back when ZT was in their heyday, like when they were making really cool knives and a lot of good stuff. And I'm not the biggest fan of them anymore, not personally. I have nothing they brought out. I like that 640 you have. I've had a few of those. Yeah, that's like the one. Yeah, I probably have. I've bought it a few times and sold it a few times. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I love those. And I love that you can change the scales. Like that's one of those models that's tight. But like back in the day when I was reviewing these knives, one of my biggest gripes with ZT was always the thickness behind the edge of a knife. It was so thick. Like they were like 25 thousandths and more. And not a lot of people, for some weird reason, measure that or take that into account. And I'm like, that's a super important thing because that affects how the knife cuts. And that's what knives are for, right? Is to cut.
Yep.
Like, so it's like
blade geometry is a very important feature. Yeah.
You won't know if you don't use your knives all the time, right? You wouldn't really notice that. And I would bring that out and I'd say, if you just make the grinds a little thinner, I think it would be awesome, and I think these knives would be better. And they didn't like that feedback apparently from a lot of people that said that, And I'm not saying that's why they eventually shut that pass around down. And it was really a lot of drama behind it. And I was like, are you guys just not liking the feedback you're getting? Because I think you would probably take that positively,
right? And
go out and change your knives, like thin the grinds out. I know it takes more time. It does take more labor, when you're grinding the knife to thin out the edge, but like how much more time, right? It can't be that much. Like, I don't know. I'm not a knife maker. I'm not going to pretend to know, but you look at like Civivi and Civivi, let's just start with them, budget knives that have really thin grinds. I've gotten to Civivis that are like 12 thousandths by the edge. I'm like, this is like I sent in for a regrind. This is nuts. Like, and it's super slicey. And I'm like, if they can do it for a $50 knife, $60 knife, why can't a $300 knife have that? That's like one of my biggest pet peeves of some expensive knives that are they have horrible edge geometry, and you don't know that unless you use the knife and figure it out,
Right.
And then, so it's one of the things I've always looked for in Foley knives is like the drift here is really thin behind the edge. I'm like,
it's a super tall flat on thin stock. Yeah.
Thin stock. It's a slicey, and that's what knives are meant to do. And that's one reason why I like it. I'm like, it's slicey, but I've sold so many knives because they're too thick, like Strider back in the day, man, they were like pry bar thick. Like it was crazy. But the newer Striders that are, at least not the Tantals are still pretty thick, but like the the hollow ground ones and stuff. I'm having a hard time with this video. I don't know why.
It's reversed. You're good.
Yeah, it's like that's why I got to do more videos like this, because I'm like always messing with the knives. But these are pretty thin. They're like 16, 17,000 spline, which isn't way thin, but
That's
for a
not bad.
hard use. But look how thick the stock is, right? Like you look at that stock.
I think that's
and that-
thinner than a PM2 behind the edge.
It is. It's thinner than a PM2. This Strider and the other one I have too, both thinner behind the edge. But look at that stock. This is their fatty, so it's super thick, right?
And it's
But
just
it has good edge geometry. Yeah, it's got that hollow grind. It's good edge geometry, so it's like they still cut really well, but they're still overbuilt knives. I think that was ZT's marketing, right? Getting to their head, because that used to be their marketing, overbuilt, you know.
Built like a tank, yeah.
Yeah, but it's like, well, just because it's built tough doesn't mean it doesn't need to cut well. You know what I mean? Like this guy. Like think about the Evo 2. We both love this knife.
Mm-hmm.
It's very thin behind the edge, but it's built really tough, right?
Yep.
It's I would put it up there. Yeah, it's thick and robust, and you know, it's like it's almost like a Strider to me. I compared that in my video because it was very Strider-esque to me, and I think that's one reason I love it, because I like Striders a lot, and I'm like,
I think John Sorensen is a big Strider guy.
Yeah.
So
yeah. You can. It's obvious. You can. I mean, I pointed out in my video, but you can totally see the divine elements, and that's fine. I think it's. You don't see, you know, Mick Strider coming out and saying, "Hey, that's a copy of our knife." He's not doing that, you know. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I wish they would take that. You know, I wish GT would have taken that criticism to heart instead of just like, okay, well, we're not going to listen to our reviewers and we're just going to keep making super thick knives for the money, because it does save costs, right? That's the only reason why you would do it.
I get that it could be a frustrating thing to hear if you've already like come out with this model and you're proud of it and you like it for whatever reason as the maker, like the OEM behind it. And then you get it to people and they're like, we'd like this to be different. It's like, but we're already done with it. You know, like, I can see that can be frustrating, but I think, you just have to be able to step away from it and take it as an opportunity to be like, all right, like that's something we can improve on. And in subsequent runs, whether it's constant quality improvement or we're branding it as a whole new model, whatever it is, like that's a feature that will make this knife better. And if enough people are saying it, then it's probably true. And then we can test it and confirm that it's true. Like, make a prototype with a thinner blade and see for yourself. And I was recently listening to a podcast a buddy of mine does, and he had a maker on who we've talked about this knife company. I don't have to, I talk enough about this knife company, but people are going to be mad if I don't say now. Tim Reeve was the guest on this podcast.
Yeah.
And I've been confused in my own head about the Chris Reeve knives under Tim Reeve now, that's kind of the direction it's going. So I listened to the whole thing because I was curious, genuinely. And people get mad a lot of the time when I talk about Chris Reeve knives because I can be very critical of them. Other people are like, finally, someone's saying what I've been thinking. Like, it's just this weird polarizing thing. But I listened to this whole over an hour long podcast of Tim Reeve, and I was trying to just listen, just hear what he had to say. And there was one point where he was really complaining about people who complain about thinness behind the edge. And he described it in a vulgar way of just saying that it's really whiny when people talk about that. And I was like, I could not disagree with you more. And to be fair, I think he was specifically like, he doesn't like it when one of his end users gets one in and they're like, I've been told these are 15 thousandths behind the edge and mine's 17. So can I send it back in and you grind it thinner? Like, yeah, that's a little bit, I would, as a maker, be mad about that. But like, as a reviewer, I don't do measurements and stuff. That's not my thing. But when I watch other people's videos, I do look for that info. And if it's a knife that I'm researching, thinness behind the edge is one of the greatest metrics of performance in terms of how a knife is going to slice. Like, that geometry is what's doing the cutting. You know, like, and people who don't get that infuriate me. I'm doing a video. I'm hopefully going to shoot it tomorrow. Comparing a double-edged Microtech that some people vehemently say is one of the best cutters out there. And I'm going to compare it to my Maximat Para 3, not because of the steel, but because Para 3 has a certain geometry, right? And I'm going to demonstrate that this slices so much better than this does. Because it does. It's geometry. It's thinness behind the edge. It's height of the grind. It's the profile of the blade. If both of them have the same sharpness of edge and they're both in a good steel, the defining factor is going to be the blade geometry and how it slices through like continuous media, like cardboard, or even cuts through hoses or rope or whatever it is. And it drives me mad when people are like, well, as long as it has a sharp edge on it, it doesn't matter. It's like, it absolutely does matter.
And funny enough, when people say the opposite, like when they say it's got thin blade stock, I'm like, thin blade stock doesn't do you any good if it's not thin behind the edge. It's nice, but it's not going to cut any better than a thicker, like that Strider that has a thick blade stock that's thinner behind the edge. Like that Strider's going to cut better. Like, and people can't get, it's weird. People can't wrap their head around it for some reason. I don't know. It's definitely a subject that's been, I think, a little polarizing in our community. And there was a few channels out there that were trying to educate people on that. Like Super Steel Steve was one of them, and
he's done some great videos, like diagramming it out.
Big Brown Bear Knives. I mean, he's a custom knife maker, and he knows that geometry more than most people will do. He's amazing. But like, there was another not Vero, because that's
Michael Christie or something.
Michael Christie. There was another dude that was like friends with Super Steel Steve.
Outpost 76.
He's another one. It was like him. His name sounds like Vero, but it's not Vero. It's because obviously Vero isn't Vero engineering, but he made some really good videos, and he hasn't made videos in a long time because a lot of those guys were making videos like that, and they just were not getting views. Yeah, you know. And I remember having conversations with some of these guys. They're like, "I just think we're done with our channels because no one cares about actual cutting geometry. They just want to see the next titanium flipper on, you know, this bigger channel that does a review on them." And I'm like, yeah, that's frustrating. You know, I wish a big channel would like, and I've tried to talk, and I talk about it in all my videos, but I've tried to like emphasize it, and it just seems to fall on deaf ears, man. You know, it's one of those things that I think it gets more into the realm of knives being fidget toys than cutting tools. You know what I mean? And there's no reason why. Yeah.
If people can be honest about that's what they want, then that's fine. But don't, when I get upset is when people try to act like it's factual because they're emotional about it. Because they love a thing, it has to be the best. That's not an acceptable answer to me. And I can say I'm wrong when I'm wrong. I don't have problems admitting that. I've been wrong about things before. I've done steel comparison videos where I've cited like things that I thought were true and weren't. And like, that's fine. Right. Like I, at one point in a video comparing Van X to LC200N said that Van X I thought was tougher than LC200N as well. It's not. LC200N is the tougher steel. Van X does have better edge retention and at least as good corrosion resistance. And to me, I prefer the edge retention. Like, but if somebody's trying to make the argument that that because they prefer LC200N, that it's the better steel, it's like, stop. Better to you means a different thing than it does to other people then. And better typically means superior, right? And it's demonstrably not. It is not superior unless you're looking for toughness, right? So it's like when people just emotionally blurt out these words like this is the best. This knife has the best cutting geometry because I've always loved cutting with it. It's like, that doesn't mean that it's the best. That means you have to compare it to the competition.
Or that it even has good edge geometry. Like it might not, you know? Yeah, that was an eye-opening thing for me too when I first got into knives because I was, you know, big into ZT at first and thought these ZTs are awesome and the cutting thing. But then I got to the point where like these things are thick. I think it was Dave from the Knives Nuts podcast. Mm-hmm. He used to have a channel. I don't think he's done anything on a long time, but I can't remember the name of his channel. But we've gone way back in knives and stuff, chatted for a long time, and he would ask me, he's like, how thick behind the edge is that? And how thick behind? And so I started finally having a car. This is when I was first in the knives kind of. I was like, I'm like, you're gonna have to educate me on this because I don't really know what you mean by that, you know. And I was willing to admit it. I was reviewing knives at the time, and I'm like, I just learned something very important that I'm not addressing that is important to cutting tools. And he's like, oh yeah, you know, the thinness behind it. And so this is years ago, educating me on that. So it's like now it's something that I've been passionate about, and I've like always tried to make sure. And I've sold, like I said, I've sold knives. I'm like, this thing's too thick. I would sell my Hinderer XM18 if it wasn't like something that's kind of sentimental. I bought it right from Rick Hinderer's pocket.
That's awesome.
Which was really cool. You know what I mean? How many people can say they not only sat in shadow with Rick Hinderer for like an hour, but like bought his knife out of his pocket? So I'll never sell it. It's super thick by me. It's like 27,000 or something crazy. And I've sharpened it a few times.
I have knives that break my rules of preferring thin behind the edge. Like my Demco 8020, the thing is stupid thick behind the edge. The whole thing is stupid
really
thick. I mean,
I was wondering about that knife. Yeah.
So the machine ground one, if you spring for the extra $400 and get the hand ground hollow grind one, then that one will be much thinner. But yeah, like I've also, for me, that's a knife that goes in my pocket if I'm literally like going on an intense hike, especially if I don't have my pack with a fixed blade on me. Then it's like if I've got a folder on me and I need to be able to like beat it through a log, that's the one. Like, and
Yeah.
to me, I look at it as literally more of a chopper than I do a slicer because it's a big, heavy outdoor knife for me.
Yeah.
And for that, I justify it and I love carrying it, and it will cut things if I want to, but the geometry is super far from slicey compared to most knives out at EDC. And it's like, I just love it. I like fidgeting with it. I like playing with it. I love how tanky it feels. So I keep it around, and it's one of my favorite knives. But it's like, I'm also not going to sit there and tell anyone with a straight face that this is a good slicer. It's
Yeah.
not. It's not what it's designed to be.
No, and that's actually a good point. Is design has a lot to do with it, right? Like if you look at a big fixed blade, like what's a popular like SE6 or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
That people are going to take out in the woods and they're going to beat baton. Those aren't thin binding at all.
Basically a small machete. Yeah.
Yeah, they're almost like yeah, and it's like but they're not designed to be like, they need to be tough at the edge, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not, and you can make a knife super thin and super tough if you're heat treat on your steels, right? You know what I mean? That's
and
all
certain
part of the
steels
equation.
have great edge stability, and like
Yeah,
that's the whole thing
yeah,
too. But in general,
yeah,
adding more material there is going to make it stronger. There's more
yeah.
structure, right?
So design, like, the philosophy of use. I know that's a total nut and fancy thing that he used to say all the time in his videos. I did agree with that though. I was like,
I talk about that a lot. Yeah.
there is a philosophy of use for every knife, I think. Like, how does this knife fit into, what is the design purpose? And I think understanding the design purpose, like if you look at the drift, right? It's designed to be a small, lightweight knife that is pretty much rust proof that you can take. If you look at the marketing for them and for quiet carry, they're all about like outdoors, kayaking, being in the
Salt
water,
water. Yeah.
salt water. It's designed for that, and it's not going to be, but that's what to understand that, you know what I mean? Does it mean it can't be a good great EDC knife if you don't go in the water? Well, absolutely. Like, it's fantastic. It's slicey, it's small, thin, checks a lot of boxes for me, but like, I'm probably never going to take it in the water that often.
Right.
I just don't live by the ocean or salt water. It's like, I might take it to the water park and put it in my board shorts. You know what I
Dude,
mean?
I've gone swimming with my Waypoint so many times just because I can. Like, do I need a knife in the pool? Absolutely not. Like at my brother-in-law's house swimming with the kids, but this is absolutely clipped to my waistband in my board shorts because I can, and because I don't have to worry about it, and I nerd out about that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm going to bring it.
Yeah, but it's I think understanding the philosophy or the design, elements of the knife, like how it was designed, what it was designed for. Yeah, Demco didn't design the 80/20 to be a super slight. I mean, look at the size of that thing; it's massive, right?
Yeah. Did you see today they announced I
was going to talk about that. I'm glad you brought it up. Yeah, I was stoked. I was like, because I like a little bit smaller knife. I don't like tiny knife, but medium size. And I was like, I've always wanted an 80/20. Man, if I got one, I don't think I'd keep it because it's so big, I wouldn't carry it.
Yeah, I'll loan you mine if you want to check it out.
I would love to. Yeah, absolutely. Because I'm
it's like a user, you can beat on it. I'm
more interested in the locking mechanism and just checking out an actual demco versus like a cold steel. Like I've never checked out a demco knife, just the cold steel designs. But like, I was super stoked when I saw that, and it's going to come out really reasonably priced. Like, I guess it's gonna be made overseas, which is fine.
Taiwan, Here's what I think is happening. I think they're using cold steel for the manufacturing, but they're not branding it as cold steel. It's clearly just it's coming in a Demco box. It doesn't say cold steel anywhere on it, but it's made of OS 10A and
totally cold steel
and they're whatever cold steel calls their plastic, and it's made in Taiwan, and it's like Demco has been part of cold steel for a very long time, so that relationship makes a lot of sense. So I imagine it'll be a lot like a cold steel built one. My gripe with it is I don't like plastic. I don't like OS 10A, but I love the shark lock, and he's going to make a version in the shark's foot, which is basically a sheep's foot, but for them. And like, it's a thinner, smaller. I want one. I'll try one for sure. But I hope that that being like the production model, I hope there comes that version, but in G10 with a better blade steel, and then I'll be real stoked.
Yeah, I was actually a little disappointed when I saw that it was like you said, Zytel or whatever they call it. It's plastic. And the OS 10, I was like, oh, like why wouldn't we just do it? And because he's run that NE20 in like crew wear and
so he's
3V.
done 20 CV, 3V, and then he's done some in crew wear. I don't know if there's been any others because sometimes he'll just do like a little batch of them and something that he got. But mine's in 3V, which I wanted because to me it's like that's the most bruiser steel for the most bruiser knife.
Absolutely. And crew wear is really good too. I really like crew wear steel. So
crew wear is right there with 3V in my opinion. It's a super toughness focused steel. Yeah.
I was disappointed though. I was like, so I hope he makes that model in his, because I don't know if we call them customs. With demco, it's, like you said, they're not all of them are hand ground blades and such like that. But like,
the machine ground ones I'd call really kind of a mid tech because they're making them just the two brothers there in their shop. They're using machines, but they're doing it. It's just the two of them, and then they're assembling them and tuning them. So I feel like to me, the closest word for it is probably mid tech. But the hand ground ones, I guess you could make the contention that those are custom because they are grinding them by hand. So that's.
But even for his designs, is that they're reasonably priced. Like, not talking the secondary market on the
right. Yeah, I paid $425 new, I think, for my 3V one.
To me, I would pay that all day for that smaller one, or even maybe a little less because it's smaller, maybe 400 or 375. Mm-hmm. Have it come in a nicer steel and have it come G10, and I would be all over that like all day long. Like, that's. I saw that I was excited, but I was a little disappointed.
Thinner and smaller in 20 CV for me, like absolutely, I would carry that as an EDC, and I would love it. And if it was a little thick behind the edge, like its bigger brother, then I'd probably just send it to like John over at BGM or something. Because I love the design and I love the lock, and it's like it's a great knife in my opinion. But
have you sent any? Speaking of regrinds, have you sent any knives to Micah Sontag at all?
I haven't. I've seen a bunch of people and they all look amazing. I actually haven't had anything reground yet, and I need to change that. I've got a couple knives.
This pair 3 was. This is not. I'm using my webcam, so this is not coming through very well. But this is reground by him, about 10 thousandths on the edge, and it's
K390.
K390, yeah. It's I chose. So I had all of this tool still, this pair of 3s. And I tested all of them, and I think my favorite was K390 of all the stills. But I sent it to him to get reground, and he does a really good job. One of the guys I follow on Instagram and YouTube, thinking of his name, Thomas Huskow or something like that, Outdoors.
Yeah,
that guy. Yeah, he sent his. I'm so bad with names. Like, people are probably like, this guy doesn't know how to say anyone's names. I'm so bad at it. Like, in real life, if I like saw you and I knew you, I would be like, hey, dude, like, I don't remember your name. Like, I'm just bad remembering people's names.
Dude's cool if we ever meet. Don't worry.
Yeah, no, I mean, I know your name is Jake, and I probably won't forget that. But, like, you know what I mean? It's a lot of people I see. I'm like, hey, you, how's it going? Yeah. Girls I did in high school, no idea what their name is. So
that's just because you're a player.
He had the Mini Adamas reground by him.
I saw
and it looked so good. I was like, I'm gonna send mine over.
Yeah.
Mine was actually my Mini Adamas was thin behind the edge. Like, it was about, I think, 18,000, 17,000 for a bruiser knife like that. It's pretty good.
Yeah,
I was pretty happy with it. I did not expect that. Benchmade is definitely not a company that I expect a thin ground blade from. The bug out is pretty thin too. I think it's around the same factory. But like the 940 is pretty thick, a lot of those. But I'm probably gonna send mine in to get reground by him, because that's pretty crazy what he did to his, and it looked so good, I thought.
Yeah, and because it became two-tone with the coated blade. So I have it's actually in my vault case, but I have a ProTech Mordax, and I also have the Malibu, which I love. But the Mordax, I've been thinking about having reground. I have them both in the all black version too, which makes it even more fun. But my kind of like hang up with doing the Mordax is like, I kind of enjoy that it is all black, but then seeing Tom's coated crew wear Mini Adamas and how like you get the belt satin and then the coating up on the flats still, like where he didn't regrind it. It looks really rad. So I'm probably going to do it for my Mordax soon.
Yeah. And he's pretty reasonable. I think I don't remember what I paid, but like a pair of I think it was under $100 or something like that.
Yeah, that's not bad.
To get a really thin edge. I'm like, I just want it. Yeah, it's like a Tom Crine regrind, but like way less expensive and not crazy wait times. So
Yeah.
he did regrind a Strider for a buddy of mine. That's a Tanto one, and you got it. And that one was going to be pretty pricey to regrind.
Yeah, because it's
It
a
was a lot more
compound, right?
Yeah, it was compound, so it was way more complex. So I was going to do a Strider because the Tantos are really thick. I ended up just selling it because I didn't want to have too thick of. I mean, I had already had multiple Striders at the time too, but yeah, like the design of the knife. Going back to that topic, it's important to know like why they designed it the way they did. If you can find that information out, and I think a lot of reviewers don't do that, and so they kind of like that. Like if you were to review so let's say you reviewed the 80/20, and you're like, it's just not slicey, it's not thin by the edge. I don't want it, and I'm like, you'd be kind of missing like you're missing kind of the point of the design of the knife, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I do that. I'm sure I do that on videos. No
Yeah.
doubt in my mind. And people have called me out for it before. I'm like, you know what? You're right. It's not designed to be that way, but that doesn't change my opinion that I don't like it because it's that way. You know what I mean?
Right.
But
yeah,
I think it is
I think
important to know.
both things can be true at the same time. Like,
Yeah.
I could maybe miss the point that this knife, imaginary, that I'm not holding right now, is supposed to be a tactical fighting knife. Like, I could totally miss that, and I could be talking about it for its merits as an EDC knife and say that it's really bad. And yes, I would have missed the point that it's supposed to be a tactical knife. But for me, I wasn't looking for a tactical knife anyways. So as much as it's unfair, I think a lot of people are also like, they're watching reviews if they're knife enthusiasts, and they use all their knives pretty much the same way. And so like some feedback is feedback, but I think it's most fair. And I love when I've had makers on here and had like long form conversations with them. If I get the chance to ask them, like, what's your, like, where do you see this knife being used? What was your vision for the model? Is this an EDC knife? Is this an outdoor adventure knife? Is this a tactical knife? Is this a cheese knife? Like, what kind of knife is it for you as you designed it? And it's fun to get their answers, because sometimes like at least part of the answer catches me off guard. It's like, you know what? I can see how it would be really, really good for that. Like my buddy Nick Rogers from Niche Designs, with his ingress that he designed at first, was like, that knife was so focused on being really for like paper, tape, and cardboard. It was supposed to be like what most people actually do with their EDC knives if they work in or if they're in like a home or office environment. It's that kind of stuff, right? Maybe the occasional zip tie, but like mostly opening boxes and then cutting them up. Like, and it was phenomenal for that. But if you looked at that knife and tried to judge it as an outdoor folder, it'd be terrible. It would not be the right choice at all, and it's like, it's good to keep that in mind and then try to talk about it within that realm, and then maybe inject some of your personal, like, I get that it might be good for that. I'm not an expert on that. So what I'll say is I wouldn't like it for the way I use knives.
Yeah. You look at like the Yojimbo too. It's designed as a defensive knife, but it's actually a really good EDC knife. That Warnglit blade I mean, most of us, I think majority of knife users, and then they cut cardboard more than anything, right?
Yep. I did like a survey of Yojimbo for a long time and loved EDCing that knife.
Yeah, and it cuts well, like especially through cardboard. Like that worm clip blade is really good for that purpose. And
that tip is fantastic at cutting through like anything soft to medium density. It just penetrates and slices. Yeah.
It wasn't designed that way. It's 100% a defensive knife. The whole design of the handle. So actually, I did a review on that knife. I did a who did the chops? Who was doing the chops on the Yojimbos? They called it, oh my gosh, it was one of those Instagram guys. I don't think it was Micah Sontag, but
is it some like Jurassic Blades or something?
Yeah, I think it was Jurassic Blades. Yeah, they were doing like the Yojimbo chop where they kind of like
they took the hump off of it.
Yeah, and it looked more like the Jaeger M. I love the design of it, right? And I did a video on it, and guys were like going nuts on me in that comment section, like, oh, you just ruined that knife. It was designed this way for a reason. The handles, or the blades this way for a reason, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, but it's way cooler looking now, and I like it better. So who cares? Right? You know what I mean? But it's kind of funny. But that's a good example of a knife that has multi uses. And
people saying you've ruined your Integra by building it into a race car. It's like, I mean, ruined it as a daily driver, maybe, but like I made it my own, and I don't know. To be fair, I get mad at people who like do ridiculous camber on their car and like are scraping
That
everywhere
drives
they go.
me crazy.
To
Yeah.
me, that's ruined. Yeah, but like if that makes that person happier, I also just have to remove myself from it and be like, those mods made them like it more. Good for them.
Yeah.
They're happy.
I had a buddy that he used to be in. He used to run together. Like he had a Toyota MR2 that he had souped up, and he used to go out to the drags and everything like that. And then years later, he still had it, and he then turned it into some like just slammed to the ground camber like all over the place. And I was like, Chad, what did you do to your car? It was so awesome before, you know.
Yeah.
And he loved it like that, you know. And I'm like, you know, again, like those modifications, I was all about the performance modification. I wanted to look clean and like inconspicuous and not draw attention, no big giant wings on it. You know what I mean? Like
Sleeper car.
total sleeper. I mean, I would roll up on vets and stuff on the freeway and they'd look at my car like, and I would just dust them. They'd be like, what the freak? You know, I loved that. Like, I know what that guy's thinking right now. Like, holy crap, I just got destroyed by a freaking Integra that like looked bone stock. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Didn't look fast. So, you know, but if I did any kind of improvement of that car, it was for performance reasons, whether it be handling or, you know, horsepower or whatever. But like, that was what my, you know, way I looked at it. But, and I looked at those guys that put those giant wings and made them all ricey and stuff. And I'm like, I hate that. Like, ugh. But that's, you know, to each their own, like you said.
Right.
To me, it was stupid, but that's okay. Like, that's your, do you, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I think every hobby you're going to find people who like find different value in it. Right. Like there's the guys who are into customs who like you and I might not see the allure that they see in those knives that they buy. And then there's also like, there's people who they build an entire giant collection of just budget knives and they spend as much or more money on knives than I do. They just have a ton more of them and they're all budget ones. And it's like, that wouldn't really make me happy either. But to each of those people on the other end of the spectrum from me, I might be this weirdo on the island who they're like, why are you playing like in the middle? You know, like either step up or step down. Like there's nothing in the range that I play in that's for them. And I don't know. Then there's modders and there's hobbyists and there's people who buy for all kinds of different reasons and do all kinds of different things. There's people who put Spidey holes in Sabenzas and the purists get mad. And it's like, it's the whole thing. And I think it should at a certain point just kind of be celebrated for what it is. And as long as people aren't a-holes about disagreeing, like the disagreement can actually be fun.
Yeah, no, it's part of the hobby. And then, like you said, any hobby has it. Cars had it. When I was into that, guns, people, you know, put stuff on their guns. It's absolutely ridiculous. That does nothing for help, you know, performance. Again, like I have that same mentality with guns as I do with, you know, when I did with cars. And maybe that's just my personality.
Bayonets on 1911s.
No. I you know, I run my rifles and stuff pretty minimalist, you know, but very functional. And, you know, it's that, but to each their own again. Like that's part of it. You're going to find that in any hobby. You know what I mean? I'm not going to dog on people for doing that. I mean, maybe I will behind their back, but you know,
or if you're a buddy, straight to their face, kick them in the nuts.
I will. Yes. Yeah. I'm like, bro, we'll call that mall ninja in the gun world, right? Don't be mall ninja in your air. Yeah. But like, you know, my stepdad has an AR-15 and he got one with a big old, like had a light and a laser combo built into the grip. And it's just horrible. And I'm like, oh, you just don't know any better.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I you know, he's my stepdad. I'm like, man, that's cool. I like your AR-15.
I don't think I've ever fired any rifle with a laser on it. I've fired like snub nose 38s and a couple of handguns with lasers on them. And I think it has its place, I suppose. But I feel like on a rifle, I probably wouldn't want a laser on it.
That has a place on a rifle is an IR laser. And those can only be seen in night vision.
If you're looking through your nods, then yeah.
That makes sense. But I don't have a night vision goggle. I don't have night vision goggles, so I'm not ever gonna have a laser on my gun. You know what I mean?
Right.
To me, like a red dot is essentially like that. Like it's an easy way to aim. Same with pistols that have optics. Like I have a buddy that has a little bit of shaky hands. And he had a laser on his SIG P226 or something like that, and he's at the range and we're shooting next to each other and it's just dancing all over the place and I was just laughing. I was like, you ain't hitting the side of a barn with that thing, man.
That's
That laser's
awesome.
all over. It's like just dancing everywhere, just giving him a hard time. I'm like, take that crap off your gun. You don't need it, But yeah, he didn't
And
know. Sometimes people just do things because they see things and they look cool.
right.
Like, look at a lot of knives people buy. There's some knives people buy, and I'm like, nope.
Of
But you
course.
thought it looked cool. It was funny when we were watching that. I was watching that live stream with you guys. Kyle had that Punisher Mannix he was starting to sell. The Punisher thing. I like remember when that was like super popular to put on everything. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I was like, oh, and he even said that he's like, yeah, I thought it was cool back then, but I think
Right.
did someone buy that knife?
I think so. And at least
That's
it
it.
wasn't a Punisher skull with the thin blue line through it. That would have
Oh
been
yeah,
a little more
yeah.
cringy, but yeah. I
Yeah, but
mean,
I
that's
saw that and I was like, ooh, that's gonna be a hard one to sell. Like, I don't know.
yeah.
And someone bought it. I was like, hey, there's some guy out there that still likes Punisher. Cool.
And it's a motivator for sure to buy the things that just catch your attention and look cool. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and if it makes you happy, again, like, awesome. Speaking of nods and lasers too, every time I watch the movie 13 Hours, I don't know if you're familiar
Good
with that
one.
movie.
Oh yeah.
Every time I watch that movie, when they're on the rooftop and they have their night vision on and they're using those to like just call out targets and just like picking people off one at a time as they're trying to advance on the compound. It's like, oh, I need night vision goggles and a really
Dude.
cool laser on a rifle.
Yeah, no, so I have some buddies that have some and they actually just did a night shoot the other night.
So
And they're posting
expensive.
some of their footage and I was like, who in the heck in our group has night vision goggles and IR lasers on there? I'm like, that's a lot of money. You're talking lots of money. That's
Yeah.
stepping up way up there. I'm like, as much as I would love to own those, when would I ever use them? Besides like in my backyard or walking through my house at night to LARP.
Right. I can hardly afford
um,
enough ammo to shoot as much
oh,
as I want, let
tell me about
alone
it.
to be getting not just really expensive rifle setups, but then full on nods and optics and like that support. Like that's intense. That's another level. But
Yeah, it's nods that's a whole other level of. We were talking about in our group chat recently, and I was like, all right, I'm not here. I'm not that level yet. Will I get
maybe
there? I
one
don't
day.
know.
Yeah.
Hey, I just barely started wearing the plate carrier, at the range and actually getting body armor and stuff like that. That's something pretty new for me too, and I'm like, oh, maybe I should get some, and why not?
Yeah.
They're not expensive. Like you can get
I really need to
decent
get one.
plates. You can get decent plates for around $100 from Botac Tactical, LA Police Gear. They have some pretty decent plates for, and you can get a good plate carrier for a couple $100, like a quality one, and it's
Mhm.
comfortable. And just, if you do go down that road, let me know and I'll walk you through some stuff. But because
Definitely.
I just barely went through it myself, and I had a lot of knowledgeable friends that helped me pick the right stuff. But
Mhm.
I actually used that. I don't really ever wear it, and I said I'm going to train in this range, and I'm going to wear it. And dude, it's crazy carrying that extra weight around and moving with it.
Yeah.
It's like intense. Like it was a workout. Like we were getting cardio big time that day, And I'm like, you
Yeah.
know what? Good to do it because it adds extra weight. And I see guys at my gym, like you were mentioning those guys running. I see
Mhm.
guys in my gym with plate carriers
Yeah.
doing kettlebells and stuff like that. And I'm like, maybe I'll start wearing my plate carrier to the gym. You know what I
I
mean? Like
think
I can.
I might be decent at it because I hike so much with a decently heavy pack on, especially because I
Yeah.
film a lot outdoors. So I've got like camera gear and knives and like all my typical day pack stuff and water. So I feel like I'm used to having weight on, but it's different having it all on your back for sure than having on your chest too. And
Yeah. So I have a front plate and a rear plate, so it's kind of
Mhm.
evenly weighted, But yeah, it's definitely interesting. It's definitely better. Like when I took it off because I wore it for quite a few runs and I was getting it just gets sweaty, and I'm just like I'm just gonna take it off for this next run. And I felt like 20 pounds lighter. I
Mega
don't think my
Man.
plate carrier weighs. Yeah, I don't think. But I'm like I was faster on that one. I was like, wow, there's something behind like having and with body armor stuff you can get crazy nice plates that are really lightweight but they're still
Right.
super strong and it
Like
costs
level
thousands of
4
dollars.
plates that are super light. Yeah.
So I have level 4 plates but they're like heavy because they're steel, like they're not, or they're actually ceramic mixed,
It's
some
a
sort of
composite,
ceramic.
right?
Yeah, composite. Yeah, but like the really really high end stuff that special ops and stuff would wear, they're really pricey but they're super lightweight but they need them. You know, those guys are out there doing what they do. Like, they need the best protection, but they also need the lightest weight that they can have, and they're going to pay those kind of money, but they, you know, that could save their life. Like, for me, hopefully I don't ever have to use it, and it's nice to have, but I'm not going to go out and spend $4,000 on a pair of plates. You know what I mean? Like,
right. I'll do that after I buy the night vision. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Once I get to night vision level, then it's, you know, where do you go from there?
Yeah.
Where do you go from there? Stuff. Yeah. Well, I probably ought to, it's getting kind of late, and I know my house is kind of like going to bed, I think. So it might be time for me to cut it off, man.
Well, cool. I really appreciate you doing this, and we went longer than we had originally planned on. So I appreciate you taking the extra time.
Yeah, I had a good chat. Good talking with you. Great chat. I had a good time. So, you know, it felt like, wow, we almost went 3 hours, and it did not feel like that at all. So
it has a way of doing that. But yeah. Thank you so much sincerely for coming on, and hopefully we'll do it again another time in the future.
Love to. Yeah.
You're welcome back anytime. And where can people who aren't, if this is on YouTube, it'll be linked down below as normal. But if people are listening, where can they find you? Instagram, YouTube, where should they be looking for you?
Yeah, so obviously YouTube, EDC Gear Reviews. Just do a search on YouTube. You can find my channel. Same handle on Instagram, so you can follow me. It's not a private page or anything. You can follow it for EDC Gear Reviews on Instagram, and I also have a Facebook page. Like, it's not the best place to go though, because I don't do much with it. So I would just say Instagram and YouTube is definitely the easiest place to find me. Pretty simple channel to search up. So yeah.
Perfect. EDC Gear Reviews it is for both. Awesome.
Yep.
Well, Tyler, seriously, thank you so much, man. And yeah, we'll see you on the next one. Thank you, everybody, for listening. This has been episode number 17, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Thanks, man.